Crisis worsens.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 19th of May. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
And here's what's leading the news this morning. The newly appointed police watchdog has said officers should use discretion when deciding to prosecute people desperate to eat. He's warned of a surge in crime as the cost of living crisis continues to worsen.
It comes after the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, told business leaders last night that he'll cut taxes to prompt investment, and warnings from the Bank of England of a looming recession.
Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have met with members of Canada's Ukrainian community on day 2 of their royal tour to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
And it's the final day of the Wagatha Christie trial. Our reporter Ellie Costello will have all the latest drama from the Royal Courts of Justice.
Join in, have your say hello, good morning, tell us what you're up to. GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News.
And don't forget, you can also subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube. It has all the latest big stories that everyone's talking about right there on the site.
It's my tie straight.
Perfect.
Yeah. Do you know that word when we talk about YouTube and we talk about subscribing? I always think it means pay money.
No.
I know it doesn't, but it alludes to pay.
No, it's free. It's free.
So that's, don't want to put you off that. Subscribe means just click a button and join up.
And it's literally 2 seconds. Yeah.
That's all it does.
So worth it.
Right. Top story this morning. The police watchdog has warned of a surge in crime, not surprisingly, as a result of the rising cost of living after inflation hit a record high of 9%.
But perhaps a bit more surprisingly, Andy Cook, the newly appointed Chief Inspector of the Constabulary, also advised officers to use discretion when deciding whether to prosecute people stealing to eat.
His comments come as the government is reportedly drawing up plans to tackle the cost of living crisis, we would hope so, and avoid a looming recession.
Well, speaking last night at a dinner for the Confederation of British Industry, the Chancellor told business leaders he was preparing to cut taxes to promote investment and avoid a downturn.
They're also reportedly drawing up plans for an emergency tax cut for the poorest families and a package to help those struggling with their energy bills. So we've been out and about speaking to people in Nottinghamshire about how the cost of living is affecting them.
Still shopping the same, but just trying to cut down where we can. But luckily, it's not affecting us too much. But we're both on pensions and we're okay. But I can imagine families with young children, it's hitting them the hardest.
We don't use the car as much as we used to because, we've got scooters so we get about and that. But my husband had an accident to work and he's disabled. He's been like that since he was 44 and he's now 71. And of course, as things increase, the pension doesn't increase to come in with the line of the cost of living. But we just have to manage.
Shopping-wise, I notice it more because I shop for a neighbour that's really vulnerable and he buys the same stuff every week and his shopping's gone up by £10 to £15 a week now.
Can you tell me a little bit about your utility bills and how you might be using different things at home and how you have to manage that?
Well, fortunately for us at the moment, it's warm. We don't need it on, do we? It's not something I'm using at the moment. Stay warm. I'm not bothered.
What I've had to do, I've had to adjust the way I live, my style of living, cut down on certain things to make sure I've got money to compensate for bills which are more important. So I have to assimilate what's important and what isn't and work out my money budget that way to pay for bills.
Well, it's made me skint. It's made me not have a lot of money at all, and the cost of food and everything when you haven't got a lot of money is ridiculous at the moment.
Electric bills been going up, it's nearly doubled. I've got public transport bills going up about 20p a trip. So I have to get 3 buses just to get to work. So that's 30p each way, that's 60p a day, which is about £3-4 a week. And then they give us a pay rise, but then they put the national insurance up. So they're giving it with one hand, taking it straight off us with the other. What they need to do, instead of taking money off us, the government get more money than us, take it off them. They're getting 75 grand a year. Why? Sitting on the bum doing nothing. Take money off them, not us.
Well, there we go. With us now to discuss all of this, the editor of CapEx, which is... CapEx does what? Tell me, Alice Denby.
We are a politics and economics website run out of the Centre for Policy Studies, so we believe in free markets, pro-growth, and the good that capitalism can do. And I should say I'm the deputy editor.
OK. So a strong sort of conservative position.
Yes.
Centre-right, would you say?
Yes. I mean, the Centre for Policy Studies was founded by Margaret Thatcher, so...
OK, that says it all.
OK.
Now, Rishi Sunak last night, so he would basically say, I'm cutting taxes, not necessarily, he's not cutting them for you, camera 6, he's not cutting them for you, he's cutting them for a little bit off here, a little bit off there, and whatever it is. Here's my point. All those people that we've just shown there, you, BB News, the People's Channel, will, Alice, those people feel better off? He'll be able to claim, oh, I've done this, I've done that, whatever. What has he done?
I think you saw there the human impact that inflation and the cost of living crisis is already happening. Every month we seem to get new, terrible news about the economy, and that means people really struggling. And the worst thing about it is that it's the people on the lowest incomes, the poorest, who suffer the most. Those are the people who are most vulnerable to price shocks. And I do think that it will stick in those people's throats a bit for the Chancellor to claim that he wants to cut taxes when the tax burden is the highest it's been since the 70s. He just recently put up national insurance.
Yeah, but in response to that, I mean, he made the comment last night at that CBI dinner that he is the crisis chancellor. You know, he has lurched from having to provide furlough to going into a war situation to this cost of living crisis. And so he has to balance the books. He has to try and do everything he can. And I suppose what they'll need to do, the Conservatives, is keep something in their armoury, because if he cuts taxes now and does sort of, you know, an emergency budget without calling it that, what happens in November? What happens in February
I tell you what happens, he'll be turfed out of the next election if he doesn't do it.
But people won't remember if he's made all the cuts now. He does need to keep something back, otherwise...
No, I think people will remember how badly they felt. Did this actually make a difference? Did he relieve my gas bill, my electricity bill, the petrol that I'm putting in my car? I mean, that's what I think. That's why I think he's politically naive. I mean, he may be fiscally astute.
Well, I mean, there's no magic money tree, is there?
I think the problem you also have in an inflationary situation is if the government pumps in more money, that just makes it worse. Part of the cause of this is all the amount of quantitative easing that was put in to get us through the pandemic. So he's in a real bind. And let's not forget that there are massive global factors causing this.
Look, it'll boil down. We can do all those excuses, but when boiled down, he had a choice to put up national insurance or not, and he chose to do it at exactly the wrong time, and it sent out exactly the wrong message.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more.
There we go. That's that sorted. Thanks very much indeed. But what can he do now? What would you like to see him doing?
Well, so there are things that he could do in the immediate term. There are things around childcare, for example, which is a massive cost for many families. It's a very over-regulated sector, and that really pushes up costs. So there are things he could do about that.
But can I just on that, because we've got children similar sort of age. I mean, the ratios they're talking about changing. I mean, do we really want to see costs reduced at the expense of safety? Surely there should be better ways of dealing with the cost of childcare in this country, like in Scandinavia, without having to change the ratios.
I don't really think that argument necessarily stands up. The consultation they're looking at is just to bring the ratios into line with Scotland. And I don't think that... So you mentioned Scandinavia. In many Scandinavian countries, they don't have ratios at all. This is not to say this just gives childcare providers more choice. Yeah. And I don't think people think that children in countries like France, for example, which has a different ratio, are any less safe. So I think that's a slightly spurious argument. And I do think that is one lever that the government could pull to really help families.
Here's the thing, and I just throw this out there. Everybody's saying, oh, you should do something, you should do something, but we have to give something back. Yes, we are suffering. But I watched a report on the BBC a couple of days ago, and it was about people outraged because swimming pools weren't being heated because councils couldn't heat them to the temperature being dropped by 2 or 3 degrees. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, really, at the end of it. I think you could suffer 2 degrees less in your swimming pool at your local swimming baths or whatever, because we've got to give... it just can't, as Isabel said, there's not a magic money tree. I mean, we've got to give... There's got to be things that we have got to be prepared to sacrifice and go without as well. There's got to be some pain.
I do think people understand and are prepared to sacrifice, particularly in the context of the war in Ukraine. I think people are prepared to bear some pain. But I think one thing that the government could also do is look at where it is placing unnecessary costs on people. Every department should be looking at what policies it has and thinking, is this going to add to people's bills? If so, can we do it differently? Let's not do it. There are green levies on energy bills, for example.
OK, so where are you standing on the windfall tax idea?
Exactly.
I think this is a difficult one. I think that windfall taxes are not good for business confidence. I think ultimately they harm consumers, whether that be through pensions. I think that they discourage the investment we need if we're going to get to net zero and get ourselves off Russian oil. And I don't think that it gives me enormous confidence that the government knows what it's doing, that it's looking to the vacillating over stealing this policy of Labour.
Yeah, I mean, Number 10 are basically blocking it, according to the Times this morning. They're saying that Boris shares those views, that it's non-conservative as a policy. But a lot of the backbenchers have been quite supportive of it. We've had former... I think they probably will eventually.
I bet you they do it. So why doesn't he just get it over and done with?
I think that the trouble is that it's tempting to do, say, the BP and whatever has made these massive profits. It seems like, there's no losers out of this. Big profits are the baddies and taxes are, to consumers are the goodies. But that's not how it works. There are always harms to consumers at the end of the line.
But they're getting profits they never expected. I think that's the thing. They're getting profits out of extreme hardship that they didn't even bank on. So it's almost like there are no losers in that.
But just a couple of years previously, they experienced unprecedented losses. It is a cyclical market.
Bless them. Bless them.
I know nobody's going to sympathise with the big oil giants, but people might sympathise with the pensioners who rely on their profits for their pension schemes and the shareholders.
So where does this leave us? If we're looking ahead, lots of talk yesterday, Bank of England threatening or predicting a recession later in the year. If we don't see more from the Chancellor, is there anything that he can do to stave it off?
As I say, I think every department should be looking at its spending and where it's imposing costs on consumers. I think that there are some regulatory tweaks that he can make, but he's in a really difficult bind. I don't envy him at all.
OK. Well, fair enough. And we're looking for people's views on all of that. But Alice Denby, thank you very much indeed for your take. And we might hear from you later on in the programme. She's the deputy editor of CapEx there. So, look, what we're saying is Alice summed it up there. I mean, the Chancellor's in between a rock and a hard place on many, many things. But he's got to do something. And what can he do to help you? And what would you like to see them doing? And
can he ever do enough? That's what I always think with these. He'll introduce a tax cut and then it'll come the autumn and we'll want another one. I think he'll always... And, Conservatives have to try and stick to their principles.
I think they've got to do something that shows they care, because that will come back to bite them on the bum. And if they don't show they care to people, all sorts of people, and this affects everybody. But as Alice was saying there, I mean, those on the lowest incomes, they've got nowhere else to go, nothing else to fall back on. So listen, let us know, gbviews@gbnews.uk or at gbnews. We'd love to hear from you today, and we'll be reading those comments out as the programme progresses.
Now, focus going overseas. US President Joe Biden is going to be hosting the leaders of Sweden and Finland at the White House today after both nations submitted their applications to join NATO.
Elena Valtonen is a Finnish MP who has been part of the Finnish delegation to NATO's Parliamentary Assembly, and she joins us now. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you. How do you think the talks are going?
Good morning to you as well, Eamonn and Isabel. The talks will be probably very fruitful and productive, looking at the process from here on. Indeed, yesterday Finland and Sweden together handed in the membership applications for NATO, and we will just see how to take it from here.
And I'm interested to hear what you think about Turkey, who, from very early on in all of this, made it clear that they were probably going to be a bit tricky. It's just so tone deaf, isn't it? I mean, they've been the nation that were hosting a lot of the peace talks, and here they are, causing problems when they're trying to respond to a serious threat.
Yes, well, it was a surprise to us that they came with their demands this late in the process. Of course, there have been talks with them also before. Now, the demands that they are proposing, first of all, this have got nothing to do with NATO or the membership requirements of, for instance, what comes to our militaries in both Finland and Sweden. So let's just hope that we can, on a diplomatic level, clear those bumps out.
Meeting with President Biden today, obviously very welcome support from the leader of the free world. What do you make of the support that's been offered to Sweden and Finland from the UK, from Boris Johnson, who, of course, just last week was over there signing this historic pact with the two nations?
We are very, very, very grateful for the support that Mr. Boris Johnson has given us, and also other leaders, other countries. Of course, this is a very difficult period now. We have very strong defense forces ourselves, so we are not especially worried. But of course, all commitments help in building the deterrence towards Russia. But also, what Vladimir Putin has recently said is that apparently he's not hugely surprised that Finland and Sweden take this step. We have been close partners of NATO for several years already, so we are not expecting any huge retaliation. And even if it were so, then we are prepared. And what comes to the help from other NATO countries, such as the UK, of course, we see that this is a two-way street. So if we get any help now, then we are willing and able to help in the future, and also look forward to contributing to NATO in the future as members.
Yeah, well, very good to hear, and interesting times indeed. And let's just see what happens with Turkey, and hopefully a unanimous decision can be reached by NATO members. Alina Valtonen, Finnish MP, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just after 6:15, bringing you up to date with the latest news. Boris Johnson is facing pressure from his own party to cut taxes and help the most vulnerable households after inflation hit a 40-year high. Labour's amendment calling for an emergency budget was defeated. 312 MPs voted against the amendment to the Queen's speech, 229 in favour.
The UN Secretary-General says he's in intense contact with Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, the US and the EU in a bid to restore Ukrainian grain export as a global food crisis worsens. Antonio Guterres appealed to Russia to allow the safe and secure export of grain stored in Ukrainian ports, and for Russian food to have full and unrestricted access to world markets.
Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney's High Court libel battle will draw to a close as their lawyers set out their cases today. In a viral social media post in October 2019, Mrs. Rooney said she'd carried out a sting operation and accused Mrs. Vardy of leaking false stories about her private life to the media.
Oh, we've got some good news, haven't we, this morning?
Yes, we have good news.
Those of you who've been with us all the way from the 3rd of January when we launched will be aware that we did something quite exciting in that first week.
What was that,
became
Isabel?
The first breakfast show to simulcast on radio and TV at the same time. So our programme is being broadcast on the TV and on the radio. We've just got our first GB News radio figures in, and they are good.
Yeah, a massive amount of you are listening to GB News every week. Over 1.5 million hours of GB News radio has been listened to since we launched in January, and that is because of you. So we thank you very much for it. Not only do you watch us on various mediums, but you listen to us as well. So that's really good.
And yeah, the whole idea and what we love about it is a lot of people get hooked in, so they switch us on in their kitchen whilst they're getting ready on the TV, and then when they hop in the car or when they're getting on the bus, they take us with them on the radio, so we can escort you from bed to desk the whole way.
People often say, how do we do it? Well, there's a thing called DAB plus digital radio, right? There is the radio player. There are tune-in apps, including our own GB News app on that. Smart speaker, online, you can do it as well, gbnews.uk. So that's not even mentioning how you can watch. But we just thank you for your support, and there we go. So
yeah, and the TV figures are also really, really good. And lots of you'll be aware another TV channel launched fairly recently. And at the moment, it looks as though we are coming out without too much to worry about. So all thanks to you. Stay tuned our way. The other thing I wanted to talk about this morning, and I'd love to know your views on this, apparently hugging really beneficial for women, not so much for men.
Why is it beneficial?
Well, I don't know, but there's been some research done in Germany and the Netherlands of couples, and in the sort of rush to get out the house in the morning when you've got us on the radio and the TV, make sure you make time to give your mum, your sister or your wife a big hug, because this evidence shows that as they go through their day, if a woman has had a hug in the morning, it helps them prevent against stress later on throughout the day.
There's no pleasing you, is it? You know your husband will be straight on here. You know he'll be
grateful if you keep the stress down. He'll be grateful. Go on.
Yeah. So I just want to know why men don't appreciate that.
Well, maybe they want something else in the morning. I don't know. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. How's this going? I'm talking about at home. You know, I don't know. I don't know.
What happens at home then?
I didn't do the science.
One thing leads to another. It's a lovely insight into Webster family life there.
Oh, dear.
Let us know.
X-rated.
20 past 6 is the time. Day 2 of their Canadian tour, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall.
Having a hug?
Probably. They often hold hands.
Yeah,
they often hold hands, right? And they met members of Canada's Ukraine community at an Orthodox cathedral in Ottawa.
Yeah, so the royal couple have managed to pack in 11 engagements into their busy schedule already. And our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, is in Canada with them and sent us this report.
If ever there were reservations about the Crown in Canada, the huge crowds of well-wishers suggest otherwise. Prince Charles and Camilla spent day 2 of their royal tour visiting the country's capital, Ottawa. Following a military investment recognising Prince Charles's commitments to the country, the royal couple paid their respects at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, in the shadow of the war memorial unveiled by Prince Charles's great-grandfather, King George V, more than 80 years ago. As well as formal ceremonies, their Royal Highnesses visited a local market here in Ottawa who are selling Canadian products like maple syrup. They were here to see how businesses were affected during the pandemic, and perhaps their presence could help increase the profile of businesses such as these. Since Russia invaded Ukraine earlier this year, the royal couple have been keen to publicly show solidarity with Ukrainians. They visited the Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral to spend time with the congregation. Blue and yellow ribbons proudly represented their national flag. Tamara Rudenko-Haralampi is grateful for their visit.
The Ukrainian community knows and understands from the work that their Royal Highnesses have done, that they stand with Ukraine, they support Ukraine.
A quick dash across town continues the post-pandemic celebration with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police's special performance. This is the first time since COVID-19 that the musical rise have performed in front of a larger crowd. In the year of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, they get to ride in front of royalty. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police are taking the performance on tour. Riding Master Sergeant Major Scott Williamson thinks the Queen's Platinum Jubilee makes this year extra special.
We are going to fly the flag, so to speak, for Her Majesty in what is a tremendous celebration, and I congratulate Her Majesty the Queen for reaching this milestone, and so thankful for her service to our country and the Commonwealth.
Climate change is expected to be a big focus today when Charles and Camilla visits Canada's Northwestern Territories. Cameron Walker, GB News.
I do like Canada.
I do like a horse show.
Yes, so do I.
Yeah, I was enjoying that.
Say that. That was very good. The Rodeo, the Calgary Stampede, that's what I would like to go to.
I just like a mountie. They always look...
You like a mountie, want to hug?
No, I just think they look cool on their horses, mounted police.
But
in
you see
Canada.
those big jodber things they wear, those trousers, they're a bit silly looking, aren't they?
I think they look great.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that, Due South?
No, I know what you're talking about.
I love that show.
Yeah?
The producer wasn't even born when that used to go out, so it's showing my age now.
OK. Coming up, we're catching up with our reporter, Will Hollis. Now, Will is in Nottingham today, and, you know, what we're doing is we're getting out and about, and we just want to know what it means to you, how the pain is affecting you about the cost of living, OK?
Yeah. First of all, here's your forecast.
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A fine start for most of us following last night's heavy rain in places. Warm sunny spells with just some showers remaining in the far northwest. We've seen some lively weather go through overnight as weather fronts cross the country from the west. High pressure is now building from the south, and so for the vast majority, actually, it's a fine morning. Sunny spells. 1 or 2 showers still possible towards the southeast for a time. Even these get out of the way. And then really showers by the afternoon will be confined to western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland where it will be cloudier and breezier. But for the vast majority, for the rest of Scotland, for England and Wales, sunny spells, light winds and feeling pleasant enough in that sunshine with temperatures reaching 23 in London, 19 in Cardiff, 20 in Glasgow, 18 in Belfast. Now, through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening, we're going to see further clear spells for a time for many, further showers for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland. They die away for a time overnight, but in the south, well, our attention turns to the continent, where once again some showery rain will start to move in, so that by the end of the night, actually quite a cloudy picture in the south and across central parts of the UK. 12 or 13 degrees here, 9 to 11 with clear spells for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then during Friday morning, outbreaks of rain or showers for many southern parts of the country, and the threat of some intense thunderstorms just passing by the southeast, most likely staying just far enough away, but we'll keep an eye on those. And for the rest of the country, it's rain or showers moving in from the west and temperatures returning to around average for the time of year. Saturday brings with it plenty of fine weather, particularly in the south, still 1 or 2 showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland. And Sunday, I think we'll see a few more showers pushing in from the west, temperatures around average.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Wherever you're listening from or watching from, we appreciate your company. Thanks for watching and listening. Still to come today.
Hospital admissions for people with eating disorders have risen by 84% in the last 5 years. That's unbelievable.
Why?
We'll be speaking to the former Emmerdale actress Gemma Oten. She battled anorexia very seriously for 13 years. She's now helping others who suffer, and she's going to be joining us in around 15 minutes' time.
Okay. Also coming up in the next hour, the cost of living has had a devastating impact on everybody and businesses as well. 7:30, we'll question the Shadow Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, on what Labour's plan would be to sort this out.
And as always, we want to hear from you throughout the programme. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBnews. So many emails already coming in on the cost of living. Should we read a couple of them quickly now? Richie in Blackmore says, they took our triple lock off us. We, the pensioner, are on fixed incomes. And it's very true, isn't it? Pensioners are facing this inflation.
You know, think of opening your mail this morning. Archie says, as I write this, my electricity is on emergency. I don't get my universal credit for another 8 days. My gas has just got £3 on it, so I can't turn it on. I sit with a blanket around me to keep warm. This is no way to live.
Oh, Archie, I'm sorry to hear that. Ken says the wealthy must pay more tax to support the poor people of society. There will almost certainly be civil unrest if people cannot eat or heat their homes. Stark warnings from Ken.
Angus, those in government, they can immediately find money for war.
True.
As the poor in our society suffer. put them all on the minimum wage for a month. I think he means the government, and they'll soon change their priorities on that one. OK, thanks indeed for that. Keep them coming in. Twitter, of course, as well, at GB News. We sat here yesterday and delivered the inflation increases. It really was quite staggering, wasn't it, to be able to report 9%?
Yeah, highest of my lifetime.
Scary.
Yeah, 1982 was the last time it was around these levels. So we're reflecting that still today, 24 hours on. Our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, has been out and about, finding out how people are reacting to the crisis. And he's joining us from Arnold in Nottinghamshire. Very good morning to you, Will. And unsurprisingly, probably like some of those emails that we just read out there, people really struggling.
Good morning. Yeah, lots of the people that I've spoken to really echoing what you've just been saying there on the GB News views. Lots of people really worried about their gas and electric. Lots of people really worried about their shopping, changing their shopping habits. So just as a bit of a reminder, as you were saying, this is the highest the inflation has been for 40 years. It's also growing at the fastest rate for around about 40 years as well. This is the figure for 9% for inflation for April, following the Consumer Price Index. Back in March, it was 7%, so quite a large jump. Of course, large parts of that are to do with the 54% price cap increase that we saw at the start of April. I think it's around 3/4 of this jump in inflation is specifically relating to energy. And the Chancellor last night spoke to business leaders at a dinner where he called what's happening right now a bit of a perfect storm, where he said that he also hopes that he can, in the autumn, budget lower taxes and while encouraging businesses to invest and train. But for the people that we're hearing from the voices that we're echoing on GB News today, I don't know whether anything that might happen in an autumn budget is going to help them right now. It's surely not going to help how they feel about it right now when they are seeing their pennies slowly fading away and the cost of living crisis really eating at their things like electric and like their supermarket bills.
No, Will, just while you're out and about there, on the outskirts of town in Arnold, I remember being in Arnold one day, and that may surprise you, but I was in Arnold. I was coming, I think, from Centre Park or something. But anyway, there is a marvellous little chef in Arnold, and it was so good. You know the outlet little chef?
Yeah.
No, Will's looking at me.
All right.
There's no idea.
Blankly.
What
No, he doesn't.
But it's not often you would write to HQ to say how good somebody was, but I wrote a letter to Little Chef headquarters.
Eamonn, you're so nice like that. People could take a leaf out of your book and write letters of appreciation.
They were really. If anybody in Arnold watching today in Nottinghamshire, you go and track it down. You go and track them down. But they were so good, so kind, so lovely, and served up such a lovely breakfast. Which just reminds me, we don't get any breakfast here at all, any eating at all. So I think
it's all right. You could have a bagel.
They're plastic.
Okay, anyway.
But anyway, Little Chef, Will, in Arnold, OK? You'll get a good breakfast.
I can go and try and track it down, but I don't think it's here anymore. To be honest, I haven't seen a Little Chef in about 20 years. I've got a very vague memory of driving past them on motorways and A roads and, you know, stopping off often just to go in to have a little bit of a break. But I don't think I've seen a Little Chef in Arnold for many years, certainly not in my memory.
No,
but I will track it down today if it exists.
You may well be right there. I mean, now that I come to it, does Little Chef still exist?
Have a feeling it might not. Yeah. Don't know what it's been replaced with. Starbucks drive-through, American.
Yeah, maybe
stuff.
It was me writing to headquarters, put an end to it. But thanks, Will. Thank you very much indeed. So to anybody who's serving out breakfasts anywhere today, it's a tough old gig.
It is.
Serving up breakfast for everybody else.
Can you just say where Arnold is again? I know.
It's in Nottinghamshire.
Oh, you're not saying it like you did before. You're going all Anglo on me.
What?
Nottinghamshire.
Nottinghamshire.
I love it. It's my favourite. I get you to say that all morning, every time
What does Nottinghamshire remind you of?
I don't know. Robin Hood. Robin Hood, yeah. Sheriff of Nottinghamshire.
Robin Hood,
Here we
riding
go.
through the glen.
Robin Hood, and his merry men.
Hailed by the bad, loved by the good. Robin Hood. See, look at that.
We've lost the plot. We'll be back in a moment.
Yeah, let's take a break. We're back with the papers right after this. every morning from 6 o'clock. We'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Gosh, at 6:37, time is absolutely flying this morning. We're on
I think
fire.
That's called time inflation. Everything's going up.
Yes, the inflation is not always bad. We're rattling through. But the good news is it's time to go through the papers, and we're joined now by the political editor for The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and the former editor of the Daily Star and current columnist for many newspapers, Dawn Neeson, and appearer on many broadcast shows as well. The title goes on.
But we're going to continue as the People's Channel. We're right on top of this cost of living crisis thing, and Dawn's going to begin by that. And the Mirror are flying a flag for it. They have a double-page spread in this today on inflation. Tell us more.
As the Mirror should do, it is really talking to its audience this morning, the great inflation swindle, teeth back in, Dawn, and why the cost of living is going up 11% for pensioners and just 8% for a multimillionaire chancellor. And, you know, they've crunched the numbers and, you know, as we all know from the brilliant coverage this morning by yourselves, inflation is going through the roof, but it is affecting the poorest.
Yeah.
Hardest.
You see, what I don't get, Dawn, is that we're all in the media game, and the optics of this, I think, for Rishi Sunak are not good. You see, David, I think he's just got to be seen to do something, to be seen to be in touch. And I think they're giving Keir Starmer the floor on this. Because, I mean, yesterday in the House, he was saying the Prime Minister just doesn't get it, he was saying. And it's hard to argue.
Yes,
against those optics.
It seems that that Rishi Sunak wants to wait until the autumn when his budget comes out to make some real fiscal measures. The problem is that it's happening here and now, and people are feeling it here and now. So he wants to give himself a bit of headroom so that perhaps when the energy prices kick in when the energy prices have kicked in, but when people start switching the heating back on again in the autumn, he's got something more to give. And he's doing a bit of a wait and see, but the pressure is mounting for him to do something now.
But you're right, Eamonn. I mean, it is being seen to be doing something now, but actually doing something now as well. I mean, he was talking to business leaders saying that, you know, he's going to cut business taxes. And it's like, well, what about the people that can't afford to turn their heating on? And the situation we've got is the poorest are still spending a bigger chunk of their income on energy and food, both of which have soared. So the poorest are spending 11% of their total budget on energy compared to 4% for the richest. So it's the real people in society who are always suffering are suffering even more. And they don't seem to be getting even the message across that they care. And just to be seen to be doing something and then actually follow through.
Yeah, and targeted support. You know, I was hearing that, you know, through the Universal Credit Programme, all being digitised and all online, should arguably be the most advanced welfare system in Europe. We should be very easily able to adapt, modify and help those who are really on the, you know, what's the word, the bread line. Bread line.
The big problem, of course, is that the poorer people spend a bigger proportion of their income on both heating and food. And it's food and heating which are going up more than anything. So the bigger chunk of their outgoings is being spent is going up.
Yeah.
Well, you know, put your political hat on here, David. What would you advise? What do you think if you were there, you know, as part of the advisory group within number 10 or number 11? What would you be saying?
Tax cuts seems to be the way forward. It will give more money, put more money in the pockets. It will increase spending power, and it will avoid stagflation. He's got to go for growth. We need growth in this country as well, because with the economy going up, with inflation going up, we're at a real risk of stagflation. And if we get that, we are really on a...
But this is where I think the Mirror is wrong on this, because constantly Rishi Sunak bashing, I mean, you know, telling business chief he's going to cut taxes, but this is actually surely what we need. We need to cut taxes across the board, but we need to grow the economy. And if you're taxing businesses out of business, the economy is just going to sink even further into recession. So there is a point to what he's saying about cutting business taxes as well. That is important.
As well as
and Dawn, I agree with you on the Rishi bashing thing. A lot of people always mention now that he's married to a billionaire or extremely wealthy. Well, do you know, why not give him some applause for deciding to actually work in public office and be a public servant when he could be sitting on a beach sipping pina coladas?
You know, you can't actually talk about anyone in government now without mentioning their background, how much they earn, who they're married to, how wealthy they are, how many homes they've got. And the politics of envy is creeping in here, I do think, as well.
This interesting line from the Guardian, David, and this is what we've actually decided to lead on this cost of living crisis and the links with crime. And really interesting hearing this newly appointed police chief, that the police should sort of be lenient when it comes to people stealing food.
Yes, this is Andrew Cook, who's the new Chief Inspector of Constabulary, and he's saying that the crime is going to go up as a result of the cost of living crisis. It's hardly rocket science, that one, but nevertheless, he's saying quite controversially that the police should go a little bit easier on people who are caught shoplifting. It's quite an interesting report, this. I mean, the British Retail Consortium have said that it's an incendiary sort of thing to say.
That's the thing. It's what they should be doing. It's the right thing to do.
Yes.
But you can't be heard to say it or seen to say
exactly.
it. So it's how you... I mean, this is where people are left to their own discretion. I mean, if you or I were police officers out there and you came across a case like this is where you'd say, right, come on, don't do it again. You know,
exactly.
You know, give that banana back or whatever you're doing. But that's what I would do. But to make it policy is a dangerous thing to say.
And the shopkeepers say it's costing £2.5 billion a year to businesses who, of course, also feeling the crunch. That ends up with putting prices up for the rest of us. This is money that's spent in security and lost stock. And of course, already the police are doing less in terms of picking up shoplifters. They've gone down to from about 16% of shoplifters being prosecuted to about 5% barely now. And in this report, when you turn inside The Guardian, there's some stuff about supermarket workers saying that they're talking about putting tags on things like baby milk now, and anything which is too expensive is being taken off the shelves and put away in a secure area. People going through checkouts saying, can you please stop scanning items once I reach £40 because I can't pay more than that. And people who are going to the self-scanning areas are putting extra stuff in the bags without scanning it. So
there's things that people don't even mention. Things like, you know, as a man, razor blades. Huge. I mean, you cannot believe the price of razor blades. Shaving foam, you know, just essentials during the day.
Sanitary products. I was just going to say that very thing, and so important. But I mean, the fact that we are security tagging baby milk in supermarkets now, but it's, you know, this is... I agree, Eamonn. This is actually the right thing to do. Is if someone is so sort of like, down on their uppers, they are stealing baby milk. We need compassion. However, you've got to feel sorry for the smaller corner shops and the supermarkets. This message giving people carte blanche to go and nick things. And they're the ones that are going to suffer.
Yeah.
They're going to go out of business. I mean, they need to survive as well. You know, I mean, big supermarkets, people go, well, yeah, fine. But the little supermarkets, the little guys on the corner, they're the ones that are going to suffer.
I was seeing, getting some examples from food banks, and the donations are drying up there because the people who normally donate, they haven't got the same resources to do that anymore. But also the type of stuff the supermarkets are donating, it's, what's it called, quinoa? What's it called?
Quinoa?
Quinoa, because basically people aren't buying that anymore, so they're left with big surpluses, so they donate that to the food banks, and people are saying, what's this rubbish? What do I want this for?
Yeah,
you know,
you need tea bags and things like that, don't you? I mean, you don't need quinoa.
Baked beans and whatever.
Don't you? Can we talk about the situation with wheat in Ukraine and this appeal from Antonio Guterres, we were mentioning it in our bulletin, to try and get Putin to have some compassion because it's going to cause a famine?
Well, it just goes from bad to worse.
But it's a weapon. It's a weapon.
Food has been weaponised now, basically, is what this story is about. The Kremlin believed to dismantling infrastructure in Ukraine, food production, blocking ports that are vital in shipping cereals out of the country. Now, Ukraine, as we all know, is the world's breadbasket, and it's very responsible. I mean, 1.7 billion people in more than 100 countries now being affected by the current surge in food, energy and commodity prices. And Putin, as we've just said, is weaponising this, is deliberately destroying the supply chain of food and grain from the Ukraine. To starve the poorest countries again, the ones that are going to suffer.
But as a tactic, it's an effective tactic. I mean, we may find it incredibly distasteful, but, you know, he's there to win that war.
Well, absolutely, and but it just goes to the desperate levels that he is willing to go to. I mean, you know, the poorer countries... I mean, Sri Lanka has defaulted on its debts for the first time since independence, and sort of like people in mass unrest across Africa and the Middle East.
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah, we know that's how the Arab Spring started.
Yes,
as well,
exactly.
David, interested in this story, the Cabinet Office stuffed with 700 HR jobs. What percentage of jobs is that?
Well, it's massive. They're trying to get rid of 90,000 civil servants because they're overstaffed and they're trying to cut costs, and a lot of them are working from home. And now it emerges that the Cabinet Office has 700 human resources officers. They're the people who hire people to work and make sure that there's diversity and inclusivity and all that sort of thing.
Do they not also deal with complaints like rape allegations?
Well, yes, but 700. I mean, it seems a lot of people. These are not... I always found that... I remember working for a newspaper office once where I was given a tour of the building when I started, and they showed me the editorial floor. This is where all the journalists work. Then they took me up to the next floor and said, this is where all the advertising people work. And they took me to where all the printers work. And then they took me to another 3 floors and says, this is where all the human resources and officials work. What do they do? Don't know. And there seems to be it seems to be an industry creating jobs.
Quite absolutely. It's not. The thing is, it's not just the Cabinet Office. The NHS, during the pandemic, sort of like twice as many pen pushers were hired as they had before, and only 7% more nurses.
Yeah, but there must be some sort of legislation. I always say to myself, well, why do we get into these situations? But it must be legislated that these people are there. I imagine so. We could do all this complaining, but somebody somewhere is signing it all off. So despite...
But also, I mean, to do a comparison, but I mean, nurses have been through the mill, haven't they, through COVID? Would you rather push a pen around than have to be on the front line in nursing?
Considering
it's
some
just
of those
an easier job, isn't it?
Considering some of the pen pushes in NHS are on £200,000 and the nurses on 29,000. Yeah, I know what I'd rather be doing.
The other interesting thing is that there's 80 people working in the COP26. That was the climate change summit, which ended in November. And there's still 80 people working in that department, even though the conference is over. I don't know.
Jacob Rees-Mogg's going to be eyeing them up before long.
And HR people are there to sack people as well.
Yes, of course. Of course.
No, but they
unless
are.
it's sacking themselves, obviously that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. No. The perfect chip has been revealed, David. A chip is a very, sometimes I think, undervalued.
Yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, a bad chip. There's nothing worse.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because we were in a fancy restaurant. And fancy people do things like they put fancy things that shouldn't be. Now, they say a pinch of salt, that's fine. Who wants thyme, Thyme, on their chips? Who wants fennel on their chips, because I certainly don't.
I don't mind. Or
We see that's
truffle cheese.
It's because of people like you that we end up in this
Truffle
situation.
oil with a little bit of parmesan on some chips
so
and some
pretentious.
salt. It's not pretentious.
This is why
it's my
they've
taste.
ruined.
You can't
They've
be rude.
ruined potato crisps, right?
Potato
You can't go and get an ordinary packet of smoky bacon or cheese and onion or salt and vinegar. You have to have truffle with fennel and chili and all sorts
It's all
of rubbish.
fancy. Yeah.
You see, my wife, right? My wife, I can't. First of all, she doesn't allow me to have crisps, all right?
Good woman.
Secondly,
Good
she'll
woman.
buy crisps and I'll go, ooh, because when her friends come round to drink a lot, copious amounts of wine and things, she gets crisps for them. But they're the fanciest crisps. They're the most ridiculous. Why anybody would... Who wants to eat dried beetroot and things?
Oh, yum.
Actually sounds quite nice, to be honest.
I love beetroot. So what's the recipe? What's the magic recipe?
You know, when I saw the headline "Perfect Chip," I thought it was something to do with football. I thought they were going to tell us, you know, it was Mo Salah going over the defensive wall. But in fact,
he is some player, though. I'll give you that, David.
Yes,
He is.
I bet he doesn't eat chips. The perfect chip, according to 43% of the population, is a big fat chip about 2 inches long, fluffy inside and crisp on the outside. And I find that quite, despite Eamonn's criticism of some of the stuff that's around, I thought a lot of people would go for those skinny French fries.
The McDonald's style chip is very good. I do like a McDonald's style.
Yes, and I'll tell you this, the best of all, I love the sort of scrapings that are left
Oh,
behind.
yes.
I
What's
search,
the phrase for those?
not for the big fat ones, but for the crispy...
Phrase for the bits at the bottom of a fish and chip. Yeah, they sell them in M&S as a separate bit. You can buy chips and then they sell the little...
I honestly get a bag of chips or whatever, and I look for the crispy bits.
Dawn, have you ever eaten chips in your life?
I was just going to say,
you look like one in that you're long and lean, but you...
I'm sorry.
Not a chip lover.
And what's the best thing to eat chips with? It says here.
Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise.
No, I was going to say a pasty supper.
Tomato ketchup comes first, but I prefer mayonnaise. But the best
accompaniment.
It's fish. It's still fish.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Do you know what gets me though? That you see shops that say traditional fish and chips.
Yes.
And I'd go, what other sort of fish and chips are there? Every fish and chip shop says traditional fish and chips served here.
But you know, they're
as opposed to what?
This cost of living crisis and all that's going on, they're
it's
saying
so
loads
expensive.
of fish and chip shops are going to close.
Oh, but it's expensive.
It's awful.
It
Have you
is.
noticed how every seaside town always has a famous fish and chip
Famous,
shop?
yeah. But at least if you go to the seaside, you get a lot of chips. If you go to some of the fancy restaurants, you get about 5 chips. And have you ever sat there and worked out cost per chip?
Yeah, no, don't do that.
8 minutes now before 7 o'clock. See the guys again in about 40 minutes' time. OK, so let's bring you up to date with what's happening news-wise. NHS England says checks for prostate cancer have hit an all-time high. Urgent referrals for urological cancers reached a record level in March, with more than 24,000 men checked.
The Prime Minister says the drug habits of middle-class so-called cokeheads are driving misery and crime across the UK. The Policing Minister, Kit Malthouse, will announce today that those convicted of selling or taking Class A drugs at football matches could face a 5-year ban to tackle a rise in violence at matches. And we'll be asking him about that ourselves when he joins us on the programme live at 8:30.
That's interesting, David. I wasn't aware that was a problem at football matches. Class A drugs.
Class A drugs. It was blamed for the Euro 2000 final problem.
Yes, debacle.
And some people, I did a story the weekend on this, and it seems that people are openly snorting cocaine in their seats at some grounds now. It's become a new thing. You go to the loo at half-time and you can't get in some of the cubicles these days.
And look, talking about football, Glasgow Rangers missed out on lifting the trophy after losing the Europa League final against Eintracht Frankfurt in Seville last night. Extra time, it went to 1-1 then. Match went to penalties. Frankfurt got it. They clinched it 5-4.
Penalties, such a brutal way to end it.
Hospital admissions for people with eating disorders have risen 84% in the last 5 years.
Yeah, boys and young men also increasingly being affected by this problem. The Royal College of Psychiatrists has issued new guidelines now to try and help healthcare professionals identify people with eating disorders whose conditions have also become more severe or potentially life-threatening. And this is to try and get them the right care.
Yeah, so what do we mean by eating disorders? Clinical therapist Dr. Bryony Bamford and the actress and patron and CEO of the charity Seed, Gemma Oaten, join us now. Dr. Bamford, first of all, what do we mean by an eating disorder? Because that covers a lot of conditions.
It does, Eamonn, it does. It's at its core, I guess, what we're talking about is a mental health condition where people are using food as a means of controlling or coping with distress, essentially. Now, that might involve restriction of food, that might involve binging on food, that might involve using certain behaviours in order to compensate for food eaten. But essentially, using food as a means to cope with distress and emotion.
Well, I want to bring in Gemma Oaten at this stage. And Gemma, you've had your own personal journey with this, very serious at times, and you've turned it around. And there'll be probably, given the figures that we're reading today, an 84% increase, people watching this programme this morning who might well also be struggling. What is the first step that you would suggest people take to try and end the cycle, which we know is incredibly hard to break?
Early intervention is absolutely key when it comes to the treatment of eating disorders. So the first step would be to reach out and seek support from the GP. But as we know, and as is reflected in these figures, often those people get turned away because they're not deemed as low enough in weight to have a problem, which is what happened to me when I was 10 years old. So the second protocol for me around all of this is that we need to be supporting the voluntary sector more, which is where obviously I have a lived experience of being there on death's door and now being the CEO of SEED, our charity for eating disorder support. But we need to start looking at the bigger picture of coming together so that the people who can't get treatment straight away don't end up falling through the gaps. A lot of this is around medical risk, and a lot of people who are at medical risk with an eating disorder might not present themselves as looking like how somebody might see somebody with anorexia who is underweight. We all know, or I know, sorry, that's ignorant of me. We know ourselves that 10% of eating disorders are represented by anorexia. We need to be more mindful and giving education around bulimia, binge eating disorder, ARFID. Early intervention is so key, and waiting for the weight to change what's already there.
Gemma, sorry, what is ARFID? Just educate me, because I'm not aware. What's ARFID?
So ARFID is becoming more and more prominent at the moment. It's avoidant restricted food intake disorder. So it's not necessarily where somebody will be actively trying to change their body type or lose weight, which is obviously often the stereotype around eating disorders. It's not about their body image or their weight. They're often afraid or fearful of certain food types and textures. They're worried that something might happen should they eat a certain food. The complexity of eating disorders is becoming so vast, and it is so vital. 1 in 5 of those affected by an eating disorder will die as a direct result of that eating disorder or by taking their own life. It's got the highest mortality rate of any other mental health illness, and we need to do more around the education.
Gemma, here's the great thing, and you running this organisation, SEED, as well. The thing is, we're a high-profile actress, and you went through everything that you went through. But you know what? You're still here. You're an example to so many people, Doctor. I think and you can tell us more, Doctor, that treatment works. You can turn certain things around. I know, and probably everybody knows somebody affected in some way with some sort of eating disorder. But it can, you can work your magic, can you not, sometimes?
You can, but what we know, Eamonn, is that early intervention is key. So the earlier you are able to identify and intervene with a specialist treatment, the better your sort of hopes of full recovery, the better your chances of making a full recovery. And very concerningly, what's happening is we're seeing a huge rise in the rates of eating disorders. Services, were already struggling before these rises, and so are having, unfortunately, to turn away people who absolutely need specialist treatment and would be able to benefit and recover if they were given that specialist treatment, but they're simply not. And so what we're seeing is people deteriorating to the point where emergency care, medical care medical intervention is required, rather than a more therapeutic care, which would be more helpful in the earlier stages of presentation with an eating disorder.
Gemma, people are getting up this morning and, you know, most people think, what am I going to eat? Some people think, what am I not going to eat today? Finally, just what would you say to people, whatever their condition? And I know normally we might think this is all about anorexia, but anorexia, as I understand it, is only 10% of all eating disorders. For someone who's got issues with their food, how they feed their own body, is there any advice, any help you can give?
Yeah, don't be afraid. There is no stigma or shame around struggling with an eating disorder or disordered eating. As you very kindly said, Eamonn, you know, I like to think that people can see my journey and know that recovery is possible, but it all comes from speaking out and reaching out for help, and whether that be a GP, a family member, a loved one, or charities like Seed and so many other wonderful regional eating disorder charities around the UK, you can break that cycle and you can recover, and we are there to help people not just survive but thrive. And it's about being brave and not feeling alone, because you matter.
Look, it's such an important issue. Gemma Oaten, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Dr. Bryony Bamford as well. And as you say, 1 in 5 people diagnosed with this disordered eating or eating disorders end up either dying or taking their own life. A hugely stark figure. They need people like you speaking to people like us. Really good to hear from you, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you both, and good luck to you. Seek that help if you are suffering from an eating disorder. 7 o'clock is the time. Back after this. Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates and strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The police watchdog warns of a surge in crime as the cost of living crisis worsens.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Good to see you, good to have you on board. Just after 7 o'clock on this Thursday, the 19th of May, you're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The newly appointed police watchdog has said officers should use discretion when deciding whether or not to prosecute people desperate to eat. He's warned of a surge in crime as the cost of living crisis continues to worsen.
Now, this comes after the Chancellor told business leaders last night that he will cut taxes to business to prompt investment amid warnings from the Bank of England of a recession.
Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have met with members of Canada's Ukrainian community on day 2 of their royal tour to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
And the final day of the Wagatha Christie trial, our reporter Ellie Costello will have all the latest drama from the Royal Courts of Justice. We'll be crossing to her live shortly, and you can join in any of the discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk. The Twitter address is @gbnews.
And don't forget, you can also subscribe for free to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone's talking about.
Right, top story today. The man who is the police watchdog has warned of a surge in crime as a result of the rising cost of living.
Yeah, after inflation hit a record high of 9%, Andy Cook, who is the newly appointed Chief Inspector of Constabulary, advised officers to use discretion when deciding whether to prosecute people who are stealing to eat.
Yeah, I'd like to know what your view is on that as regards police discretion. His comments come as the government is reportedly drawing up plans to tackle the cost of living crisis and avoid a recession.
Well, speaking last night at a dinner for the Confederation of British Industry, the Chancellor told business leaders he was preparing to cut taxes to promote investment and avoid a downturn.
Government's also working on plans for an emergency tax cut for the poorest families and a package to help those struggling with their energy bills.
Well, our reporter Will Hollis has been out in Arnold in Nottinghamshire getting your thoughts on the cost of living, and he joins us now. Will, what have you been hearing?
Yes, of course, lots of people really quite worried about the rising cost of their electricity, their gas, their utilities, and we know that people are changing the way that they shop, changing their shopping habits, going to supermarkets that they might have thought that they didn't want to go to before, and now they're actually really quite considering how they might be able to save 10, 20, 30p here and there, because it really does matter to people at the moment, and they really are watching what's in their wallets, what's in their purses, what's in their handbags. So I've been speaking to people on this Arnold High Street, a high street that does seem to be doing a little bit better than most other high streets. There doesn't seem to be that many to let signs, there doesn't seem to be that many shops empty, but certainly the people living here in this part of Nottinghamshire are certainly being affected. So I spoke to them yesterday evening.
Still shopping the same, but just trying to cut down where we can. But luckily, you know, it's not affecting us too much. But you know, we're both on pensions and we're okay. But I can imagine families with young children, it's hitting them the hardest.
We don't use the car as much as we used to, because I mean we've got scooters, so we get about and that. But my husband had an accident to work and he's disabled. He's been like that since he was 44 and he's now 71. And of course, as things increase, the pension doesn't increase to come in with the line of the cost of living. But we just have to manage.
Shopping-wise, I notice it more because I shop for a neighbour that's really vulnerable, and he buys the same stuff every week, and his shopping has gone up by 10 to £15 a week now.
Can you tell me a little bit about your utility bills and how you might be using different things at home and how you have to manage that?
Well, fortunately for us at the moment, it's warm. We don't need it on, do we? You know, it's not something I'm using at the moment. Stay warm. I'm not bothered.
What I've had to do, I've had to adjust the way I live, my style of living, cut down on certain things to make sure I've got money to compensate for bills which are more important. So I have to assimilate what's important and what isn't and work out my money budget that way to pay for bills.
Well, it's made me skint. It's made me not have a lot of money at all, and the cost of food and everything when you haven't got a lot of money is ridiculous at the moment.
Electric bills been going up, it's nearly doubled. I've got public transport bills going up about 20p a trip, so I have to get 3 buses just to get to work, so that's 30p each way, that's 60p a day, which is about £3-4 a week. And then they give us a pay rise, yeah, but then they put the national insurance up, so they're giving it with one hand, taking it straight off us with the other. What they need to do, instead of taking money off us, the government get more money than us, take it off them. They're getting 75 grand a year. Why? Sitting on the bum doing nothing. Take money off them, not us.
lots of people being affected in lots of different ways, you know, things like bus prices that we heard from the gentleman just then. But one thing that I am quite impressed by, despite all of these difficulties, when I am out speaking to people, is often the stoicism and how people do seem to be just getting on with it while they are having these problems. A lot of people say that they're just having to live within their means and getting through it day by day.
OK, Will, thank you very much indeed. In studio now, the Deputy Editor of Capax, that's Alice Denby.
And our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, joins us here for his analysis as well. So a full panel for you this morning. Tom, I just want to talk first of all about the Chancellor calling himself the crisis Chancellor at that CBI speech last night. He'd hinted that he was sort of warming to a windfall tax. Then we read in the papers today, Number 10 have blocked that. And we're getting messages in from GB viewers and listeners, Danny in the Solent, saying, look, Rishi Sunak is doing all he can. Nonsense. He could cut green levies and VAT on energy bills. And, of course, there's all controversial national insurance price rise as well. So is he doing everything he can?
It's a really difficult situation for any Chancellor right now. There are many calls for many things to be done. One of the big worries when you have an inflation crisis is if there's a direct cash transfer, if money is given to people, well, to some extent, that might push inflation up further. So that's a big worry. There are some credible calls from senior Conservatives this week, including Jake Berry, the chairman of the Northern Research Group of MPs, for VAT cuts. Now, that could have a deflationary effect, but it depends how that money is used in terms of how that could ease people's troubles right now. And then, of course, there's this battle over the windfall tax. And we see in some of the papers this morning, Number 10 is apparently blocking this. I would wonder if that is briefing from Rishi Sunak's team, if that's briefing from the Treasury there, because there does seem to be a bit of a differentiation there between the Prime Minister, who's not particularly ideological, but is worried about being seen as some sort of big state, big spending interventionist Prime Minister, and Rishi Sunak, who, of course, has had his standing knocked a little bit in the last few months, wondering if it's time to go populist. But I think this overall characterisation of a crisis Chancellor is one that's correct. I mean, have we ever seen quite so many crises in such a small period of time, whether it's international troubles with war, with pandemics, with everything else going on? It's really an extraordinary time, and I don't think anyone would really want to be in his position right now.
OK, Alice Denby, you combine politics and economics with what you do. This is typical of what people are saying. Ray in Eastbourne, good morning, Ray. Alice, he says, many years ago we were told that privatising the national industries would create competition. It would reduce prices. Since privatisation of gas, electricity, water, railways, it has only created monopolies and cartels on unaffordable essentials. We have been conned.
I mean, I think Tom set out really well there the difficulty that the Chancellor's facing. I think part of the problem is that he set an expectation for the public during the pandemic that the government was able to do whatever it takes to help people through a crisis. And actually, often, the best thing the government can do to create growth is to get out of the way. So that's the challenge that he's facing now. What he should be doing is going unashamedly for pro-growth policies. We should be looking at reducing tariffs on trade. We should be looking at anything that the government does that adds to the cost of living for people, and we should be getting out of the way as much as possible.
What about this? What about the idea of, instead of going for a windfall tax off the big companies, asking them to try and reinvest some of those profits into
he is doing that. That always makes me, please, 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 will you invest something?
Well, rather than taking their money and stopping growth.
Is he saying, please, 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 Tom, and if you don't, we're going to windfall you? Is that what he's saying?
Well, that's the implication, but the problem is that if, as soon as he makes a very solid call there, he sort of backs himself into a corner. What we're seeing is a lot of nudges in terms of how the Chancellor has been speaking, and also at the CBI last night, talking about this plan for growth that was actually announced back at the spring statement that sort of got buried by all of the other announcements and, of course, that record high tax burden. But there is a plan to cut particularly taxes on investment to try and spur some growth. And whether or not that will be brought forward is a big question. And then, of course, there's the other big plan, the 2024 income tax cut, would that be brought forward to help with the cost of living? And would that actually help that much? Because often it's the people who actually don't pay any income tax at all. We know we don't pay income tax until we're earning more than £12,500 a year. It's some of the people that aren't even at that level who are struggling most. So the big question is whether universal credit gets that uplift again, that £20 uplift. But then, on the other hand, would that in and of itself be inflationary? Would that be adding fuel to the fire of this big, pumped-up monetary expansion that we have seen over the last couple of years?
Like we've been saying, stuck between a rock and a hard place. And don't forget politics at the heart of all of this as well. Pensioners, traditionally Conservative voters, and they're saying impossible to live on a fixed income with 9% inflation.
Yeah, and I think we should also think about young people who have never lived through a time like this. We have never experienced the kind of corrosive power of inflation, how it just wipes out your savings, it wipes out your earnings. And this is going to be very, very tricky for everyone in Britain, I think.
Do you think it's going to get worse?
Yes. But I think we might... Who knows what will happen with the war in Ukraine, with the current oil price. Things might turn around. It might be temporary, but it's going to be a lot of pain. It's projected to get worse by the end of the year and perhaps beyond that too.
OK. Right. Well, that's quite sobering, guys. Thank you both very, very much indeed. Why, when you have Shell posting first quarter profits of 7.6 billion, says Andrew, can their profits not be capped? To allow these kind of profits is totally absurd when you have people having to choose whether to heat or eat. You're not sure. I mean, you're involved in a think tank, Alice. You see this differently.
I think the challenge for politicians and for policy wonks is that you have to take the emotion out of it. These kind of emotive stories are obviously devastating, but that's not how you make good policy. And I feel like this idea for a windfall tax is perhaps being driven by emotion, as I say, by the idea that there are some fat cats sitting here on tons of profit. That's not necessarily the best thing to do. We need clear heads, we need to have a steady hand, and we need to be unashamedly pro-growth.
Pro-growth. OK, thank you both very much indeed for the moment. Obviously, we're talking about this throughout the whole programme today. GB Views at gbnews.uk. If it's important to you, it's important to us. And you can tweet at GB News as well. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
And it is 7:16, time to bring you up to date with the latest headlines this morning. And as we've been reflecting, Boris Johnson's facing pressure from within his own party to cut taxes and to help the most vulnerable households after inflation hit a record-busting 40-year high. Well, Labour's amendment calling for an emergency budget was defeated. 312 MPs voted against it to the Queen's speech, with just 229 in favour.
The UN Secretary-General says he is in intense contact with Russia, Ukraine, Turkey and America, as well as the European Union, in a bid to restore Ukrainian grain exports as the global food crisis worsens. He appealed to Russia to allow the safe and secure export of grain stored in Ukrainian ports and for Russian food to have full and unrestricted access to world markets.
Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have arrived in Canada for day 2 of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. They met with the country's Ukrainian community and attended a ceremony to honour Canada's war dead in Ottawa. It's the second day of their royal tour, which celebrates Queen Elizabeth's 7 decades on the throne.
Look, in all honesty, we're talking about inflation. Our figures, our viewing and listening figures are being subject to that as well, which is a good thing.
In a good way.
This is a good thing
because
you are listening on DAB plus digital radio, on the radio player. You can tune in to the various apps, including the GB News app, on your smart speaker, online at gbnews.uk, and people are listening in their droves.
Yes, so we obviously, when we launched on the 3rd of January, that first week of this new breakfast programme, we did a first for the country, and we are the only breakfast programme in the UK to be simulcasting our show on radio and on TV. And we now can tell you that 239,000 of you are listening to GB News every week. That's over 1.5 million hours of GB News radio that's been listened to since we launched in January.
Just looking at this comment from Ed. Ed says, Isabel is exactly right.
Sorry, what was that?
Isabel is exactly right.
Oh, right. Thank you, Ed.
I watch Eamonn and Isabel on TV when I have my breakfast. I listen in the car on the way to the station. Thank you, Ed. Then I watch the show via an app on the train. Look at this.
We are multimedia.
What an absolute joy.
Can't escape us.
What an absolute joy Eamonn is to watch.
Does it say that? No, sorry. That's been added in. That's been added in.
There we go, guys. 18 minutes past the hour. Very good to have your company. Today is the final day in the Wagatha Christie trial in London.
Yeah, if you've missed it, Rebecca Vardy is suing Colleen Rooney after she publicly accused her of selling private stories about her to the Sun newspaper.
Well, it's been a 7-day trial. It's been a dramatic trial. Our reporter, Ellie Costello, has been in court every day. And how's it all shaping up to finish today then, Ellie? Good morning.
Yes, good morning. After 7 long days, it finally comes to a close today with those closing arguments being read today in court. And there have been so many highlights from this trial. It's actually hard to look back because there's been so many standout moments. But I think for me, the showman in all of this has been Colleen Rooney's barrister, David Sherborne. He's had some great one-liners in the past 7 days. A lot of this evidence actually relies on WhatsApp messages between Rebecca Vardy and her agent Caroline Watt. Now, lots of those WhatsApp messages can't be seen because Caroline Watt actually lost her phone in the North Sea. It fell overboard 3 days after it was asked for by evidence from the other side. And David Sherborne made a joke about that. He said that unfortunately those messages can't be read. They're at the bottom of the North Sea in Davy Jones's locker. To which Rebecca Vardy said, "Wait, who's Davy Jones?" And the judge had to intervene at that point and explain that it was a nautical reference. And I think another standout point for me has been Wayne Rooney carrying his man bag all week, this big black Fendi bag. There's been podcast mentions about it. There's been articles written about it. Why is Wayne Rooney carrying a man bag? It turns out, actually, that it is Colleen Rooney's bag that he's been carrying all week. It's full of legal documents and he has to carry it because Colleen Rooney is in a medical boot. So there has been lots of entertainment in the past 7 days during this trial.
Ellie, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. 7:20 is the time.
Now, a Russian soldier has pleaded guilty to killing an unarmed civilian in the first war crimes trial relating to the invasion of Ukraine.
The 21-year-old soldier now faces life in jail. Ukraine has also so far identified more than 100,000 possible war crimes committed by Russia.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that somebody we've interviewed many times on this channel, Alexei Goncharenko, a member of parliament in Ukraine, is actually here in person, joins us in the studio, and a very warm welcome to you. Thanks for coming in. I'm so thrilled to see you in the flesh. Let's start by...
Thank you very much for the invitation and for all covering for all these months. To you, to GB News. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been absolutely our duty to report what's been going on. And look, great to see these first war trials getting underway. Really strong message being sent to Russia, and the first of many, I assume.
Absolutely. That is very important. It's not only because we need justice, but also to prevent such awful things in future, such atrocities as raping women, teenagers, killing people, civilians, absolutely unjustified. And that is very important for everybody. Everybody on the planet should know if they did something like this, they will be taken to responsibility. That is a very important message.
Such an important message, and also to be seen to be acting within the rules of the Geneva Convention, to be shown that you're doing a just war, as it were. We only have to look at what's happening to the Azov battalion, who we thought were being involved in some sort of prisoner swap, and it appears as though there may now be some sort of show trial or a sham trial, and who knows what will happen to them. Are you able to give us an update on what's happened to what you and your president describe as the heroes of the Azovstal?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that now the heart of the free world is beating there in Azovstal, and absolute heroes that will be in the textbooks of history, many films. In more than 10 weeks in siege, they were holding the ground, but everything, it couldn't last forever, and now part of them already surrendered. Definitely we are very much concerned about what will happen next with them. We are doing everything we can to exchange them for Russian prisoners of war that we have. And we are ready to do this from the first day. But Putin don't care about people, not his people, not other people. He's just absolutely anti-human person. It's hard for me to call him human, sorry. So that's why we are very much concerned, but we'll do our best. And also we hope that the world will help us. Yesterday I spoke with Liz Truss, and I also hope that the United Kingdom will help us to exchange these heroes, to take back our fighters from Azovstal to control Ukrainian territory.
Tell me about that conversation with Liz Truss yesterday. What was that private conversation involving, and what assurances were you given?
I have two messages with which I came to the UK. I worked here for several days today. I'm leaving back home. And these messages are clear. First, we need to win. Even for this, we need weapons, weapons, and again weapons. And first of all, air defense, aircrafts, long-range artillery, anti-ship missiles. So this kind of weaponry which we need. We don't ask for boots on the ground. We will do everything ourselves. But like Churchill said, give us the tools and we'll finish the work. So we want to do this.
And to be fair, that message has been well received by UK government,
yes.
and we have done a great deal.
And I want to say thank you to the UK government and to the UK in general, to a nation, to ordinary people. I'm so moved. Moving just in London, and one man recognized me and said, I have Ukrainian family which lived in my house. Yesterday I met a member of the parliament from Middlesbrough, and he had 2-year-old Vladislav and his mother Tatiana from Ukrainian Severodonetsk, where now here the fightings are. And everybody are so supportive. I'm so touched, and on behalf of all Ukrainians, I want to say big thank to the United Kingdom, because you are showing leadership in this question. You and your government, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and we are very thankful. And also yesterday I told this to Liz Truss, Foreign Secretary. And so that is the first, these weapons. And the second, after we will win, which we are absolutely sure of, we will need to rebuild the country. The country is devastated, destroyed. Mariupol, we told about him, it's a 500,000 population city, just destroyed to rubbles. It doesn't exist anymore. And we will need for this hundreds and hundreds of billions. And definitely we are sure that it's not British taxpayers who should pay for this. Are those who are guilty in this, it's Russians, with their dirty money, dirty people, these Russian oligarchs, propagandists, all these entourage of Putin, they should pay for this. And they have assets here in the UK for billions and billions of pounds, starting from Chelsea, finishing with bank accounts, everything. And we need to do everything, and that was my second message, and that's what I addressed to Liz Truss also, that we need to do everything to track their assets, to freeze them, and then to confiscate in favor of Ukraine. That is very important. And also, I raised the issue of International Criminal Tribunal, not only against those who committed these awful crimes, like was told, but also against political and military leadership of Russia, including Putin himself, for the war of aggression which they started. And also, I hope that will be a support from the United Kingdom.
There's no journalistic impartiality when it comes to saying we all wish to see Putin facing justice. Absolutely no question on that. And may I finish this interview by congratulating you on your win in the Eurovision on Saturday night. The whole of Europe. Well, we came second, but we were very pleased to come a humble second after Ukraine won that. Alexei Goncharenko, thank you so much. Lovely to see you.
It was very lovely to see you.
Thank you.
27 minutes past the hour. Coming up, a new report claiming the government has failed healthcare workers during the pandemic. We're discussing that right after this short break. And all the sport of the day, incidentally, not to be for Rangers last night after this. Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Look, inflation is what we're talking about today. Cost of living crisis. It's the highest levels in 40 years. And we're now going to talk about small businesses.
Yeah, they're really feeling the heat. New analysis from Labour has revealed the impact of the cost of living crisis on companies, as 200,000 have been struck off the Companies House register.
Give me that again.
So far this year. 200,000 businesses. Yeah.
Right. Well, OK. We've got the Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and that is Jonathan Reynolds, who joins us now. Jonathan Reynolds, I gasped there a bit because I did hear the Chancellor last night saying, businesses, make no mistake about it, we are your friend. And I would suggest amongst those 200,000, and anybody who tries to run a business, they may not necessarily think that's true.
Well, yes, and good morning. I mean, I read the readout of the Chancellor's remarks last night, and I think someone said they felt less assured when they left and after they'd started the event and after they'd heard the Chancellor, they were less reassured. I mean, this figure, of course, the cost of living crisis is a huge issue for households, no doubt about that. But it has a huge impact on businesses too. We've got businesses that are closed because of their energy costs. We've got this incredible number of businesses who've had to go into dissolution. That's actually more, by the way, in the first part of this year than the entirety of last year. It was 108,000, the figure, for the entirety of 2022. So you get a scale of the crisis. And look, the Chancellor himself, let's be frank, he has added to the problems by going ahead with that national insurance rise. No other big country has increased taxes because of the other pressure that people are under. I think the Chancellor's got to stop commentating on the economy, and he's got to start recognising he's the Chancellor. It's down to him to have some action. There are things he can do. People need some help. Businesses, households. He's the person who's got to do it.
Look, we've been speaking to commentators this morning who say, look, these emotive arguments are, good for media debate and discussion, but when it comes to running the Treasury, running the country's coffers, you need to be clear-headed and you can't get weighed down in all the emotional stuff. And in defence of the Chancellor, he called himself the crisis Chancellor. He's just gone through the pandemic. We're well aware of that. Now we've got inflation at 40%. It is a really difficult job for him, trying to balance that clamouring from the media classes and indeed trying to balance the books. We've got this huge national debt to try and service. So, he is responding to that in his own way. You look at the front of the Mail this morning, plan to help the 3 million lowest paid. We're talking about seeing some cuts and help on energy bills in July and then tax cuts in the autumn. What more do you want to see from him?
Well, I agree you've got to be hard-headed, but a crisis where you have energy bills at £2,000 a year, maybe going to £3,000 a year by the end of the year, inflation at the highest level for 40 years. The hard-headed response, not just an emotional response, is to recognise, of course, that's a huge problem for households, of course, it's a huge problem for businesses, but fundamentally the health of the economy, the recovery from the pandemic, everything the Chancellor is basing his own figures on, is based on people going out and spending money in shops, buying services. If that stops happening because those businesses have gone out of business or because people are so worried about the cost of living they're not spending money, well, actually the overall health of the economy declines further. Specifically on how you get help to people, well, of course this country's had to spend a lot of money in the pandemic. That's why our central proposal on the Labour side, use a windfall tax on these record oil and gas profits because of the wholesale cost of energy going up by such a degree no one ever thought would be even conceivable. Use some of that to then get money and help to households. So it's not just about spending or borrowing government money, it's about looking at the economy overall, looking at where there have been people actually doing very well. They're still going to do very well. Look at the state of wholesale energy prices. But let's use a little bit of that to get help to people because they need that help, but because the economy needs that spending overall as well.
Isabel made a very impassioned plea for the Chancellor. They're calling him the crisis Chancellor. In football, there's a manager called Claudio Ranieri, who, I don't know if you know or not, Jonathan, is known as Tinkerman. I just see Sunak as tinkering with a bit of this and tinkering with a bit of that. The optics have got to be, he's got to be seen to do something. But I put it to you, you come across there and you say, right, windfall tax. The economic experts we talk to will sort of imply, people like you, Labour Party policy, oh, it's all a bit simplistic, you don't really understand the economy. Why do you think they're wrong and you're right?
Well, fundamentally, first of all, I don't back a windfall tax lightly. It's based on an analysis of the wholesale energy prices. And to be fair, we've talked before about how the energy companies themselves have seen a level of return they could never have expected or anticipated, and frankly don't know what to do, in some of their own words, with some of the money they've had as a result of that. So it's an analysis of where the burden lies in the economy and where help needs to be given. Let me give you an example of something we're seeing right now. One of the big fertiliser factories in this country is shut. It's been shut for some time, and so therefore, because of that reduction in production, we'll see energy prices linking into food prices next year because there's less fertiliser. If you use some of the windfall tax revenue, not just to help households but to help energy intensive businesses, well, you're actually improving, not getting away from the fact there's some serious problems in terms of inflation and energy prices in the economy, but you're using that for the benefit of people overall. And I would just say, look at any serious economic metric, look at economic growth, look at the overall picture of the economy. Compare the last Labour government, it was some time ago now, I know, to the last 12 years of this government. The economy fared much better under Labour, there's no doubt about that.
We'll never resolve the windfall or not windfall situation, but I think what I'd like to do today is to say to our viewers and listeners, tweet us and email us. Are you in favour, the way Jonathan Reynolds is there, of a windfall tax or not? Is it more complicated than that? I think we'll draw up a poll on that, Jonathan.
Yeah, let's do that. And look, just before we let you go, Jonathan Reynolds, speaking of our viewers and listeners getting in touch, one's got in touch saying, regarding hundreds of thousands of companies being struck off, a lot deserve to be after being set up and not being financially viable. This is the argument of these zombie businesses that have been able to operate for so long without actually making any profit at all. Perhaps this is a chance for we've seen these amazing employment figures this week, undeniably strong, a time for the
nobody wants the jobs.
Market to
nobody wants the
even
jobs.
up.
What's the point of having all those jobs when no one wants them? They're not attractive. They don't pay enough money. The whole thing is a farce.
Jonathan?
Well, on the employment figures, unemployment being low, that's obviously got to be a good thing. But people need to understand that one of the factors behind that has not been people going into work having been unemployed, but older workers in particular leaving the labour market entirely. So it's a little bit different to what we've seen in the 80s and 90s. It's something the government's got to be aware of. And just on the company statistics, look, they're always going to be crude with the ONS statistics on companies, but the fact that more companies in the first part of this year have been dissolved compared to the entirety of last year, well, again, it's another sign, if we needed any more, of just how serious things are and the fact the government need to act.
All right, good to get you on. Jonathan Reynolds, Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah. I was just looking, there's a lot of people there talking about, stop moaning and get on with it. They basically say, I wish I could find some of these here, but the people are saying that, look, we make do, we wrap ourselves in blankets, whatever, that's what you do, stop moaning about it.
Well, they did it after the war. We'd keep talking, we'd make these post-war comparisons.
It's a different generation, I suppose, who are not used to sort of toughening up with that. But that aside, what I can't stand is this idea there are 1.3 million jobs out there. What sort of jobs? What sort of jobs must they be that nobody wants them? So, you know, the government can sit and say this is a fantastic situation. It's not a fantastic situation if people aren't taking up those jobs. And I say it again, you can't get them in the hospitality industry, you can't get cleaners.
Advertising, we were talking to yesterday,
Gosh,
they
we're
couldn't
talking
get
about-
any
yeah.
staff, and same in accountancy, lots of job vacancies there. People just can't fill the slots anymore.
So it is complicated, and we're going to try and answer some of those questions with the newspaper reviewers this morning, Dawn Neeson and David Wooding, right after this.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, it's 7:40, time to go through the papers again, joined once more by David Wooding and Dawn Neeson. And David, we're going to start with the story which I believe Kit Malthouse wants to talk to us about at about 8:30 this morning. He's the Minister for Policing, and this is so-called middle-class cocaine users in football settings, becoming a bit of a problem, which you can enlighten us about. And the Telegraph's also covering on page 9. That's not suggesting you're a middle-class drug user.
Because you like football,
yes.
obviously.
No, just because you had reported on this recently.
Yes, I did report. We had a hint of this happening in Sunday's paper. So what the announcement is going to be is that anybody caught in possession of or using Class A drugs at a football match will face a 5-year banning order. Now, the banning orders were introduced to stop racist chants, homophobic chants, violence and other disorder at football matches. That is now going to be extended to the use of cocaine. These football banning orders have been used quite some success in football grounds because they've also used them to try and they've extended them to stop racist trolling on the internet. So
against players, for instance?
Against players, which is we don't know how well that's going to work, but that's a recent innovation. And now it's going to move to cocaine. It seems this was done after the 2020 Euro 2020 final, which was actually in 2021 last year against Italy, when there was quite a bit of There was a lot of drugs. And the authorities said at the time it was fueled by cocaine.
It is amazing. Of all the matches you've gone to, and I've gone to, have you ever felt the need to get yourself drugged up to the eyeballs so you can understand your football a bit better?
Not saying that. I mean, sometimes watching West Ham is a bit soporific, it has to be said. But no, I haven't. But,
no, I just find the things that... I mean, I didn't have any idea that this was part of a culture.
I know, but Eamonn, with the greatest respect, and look, I know nothing about football, but they do say whenever there's a big football final, domestic abuse goes up, something that you wouldn't relate to football either. Drinking in football's a big thing, something that you wouldn't relate to either. So there is a sort of undercurrent that perhaps isn't your part of the football world.
I've never understood getting drunk at a football match. Because I like to enjoy the occasion.
Yes.
Have a drink afterwards.
Afterwards,
celebrate. I mean, I once went to a Champions League final and saw some friends there in the afternoon of the game, and they were absolutely out of their mind. On drinking.
Well, that's what happens at rugby. That's all I can say. Rugby is all about the drinking. Anyway, it all ties in very well to this next story, really, Dawn. Obesity crisis, and the Express have got it on page 20, tucked away in there. This should be front page news. We're going to be the fat man of Europe.
Well, this is it. It's in a lot of papers today. The Express and the Times have covered it very well as well. And it's obese is set to outnumber the healthy in British adults within 5 years. And if trends continue, then the country will reach a tipping point in 2027 when 1/3 of adults will be obese, and that's more than the number in the healthy way. And by 2040, nearly 4 in 10 adults in the UK, that's 21 million of us, are projected to be obese, with 19 million more classed as overweight. Now, this is absolutely...
The cost of living crisis won't help that.
No, absolutely.
Like cheaper food, worse food.
And this is, again, linked into that with Boris abandoning the so-called world-leading obesity strategy, delaying a ban on buy one, get one free on junk food, in inverted commas.
Well, you don't get buy one, get one free on anything.
On
but
healthy
junk
things.
food.
And this is the thing, Isabel, if they did, buy one, get one free is not necessarily a bad thing in a cost of living crisis, but it's never applied to the healthier food
bananas.
stuff. No, it's always the family-sized grab bags of crisps and chocolates and biscuits. And
OK, here's an idea. What about buying a gastric band and getting one free? Because that's where you're heading. I mean, you've got people in hospital with coronary disease, with diabetic problems as well, with blood pressure.
Poisoning ourselves, as you say.
Absolutely right. And, listen, you guys are all perfectly in line weight-wise, but, I just wonder, somebody like me, would you ever have to think and say, right, should I do this? Should I get this done? Because if I do, I'll raise a lot of potential health problems.
Well, the NHS, I mean, it costs £6 billion a year for the NHS. And as you say, Eamonn, it's, 13 types of cancer, type 2 diabetes, heart disease. It's costing millions and millions of pounds. Now, of course, there's personal responsibility, but it's not always easy to take personal responsibility.
But certainly we see it's not working.
Yeah.
Personal responsibility doesn't work. We're all weak and
well,
we're
this
all
is the thing.
addicted. This is another form of addiction.
Yeah.
It is. No, there are lots of mental health issues going on with why people are obese, and I say the cost of living crisis. The levelling up agenda is important here as well, because this is like 46% of people in the poorest areas are expected to be obese by 2040, whilst only 25% in the least deprived areas. So, again, it's a huge...
The argument about personal responsibility, I agree with you, Eamonn. I always think it's so patronising because, as we were just saying, these bog-off things are never directed towards the healthy food. And there's such a cynical, statistical process going behind the scenes, which is how can we target addictive, poisonous foods and give discounts on that so that those who are the most hard up end up buying that rather than...
But fast food, like chicken and whatever,
make a healthy
is
fast
addictive.
food, yeah.
Yeah, it's all addictive. It's all made to make us buy sugary drinks. We put salt on our food and then we drink sugary drinks to take it away. It is... I mean, I do think the food lobby must be so powerful because they literally are getting away with murder. Literally.
And the other thing, Eamonn, is, you try, and I've tried, reading the labels on this food to see what is healthy.
My eyesight won't let me.
Well, it's impossible. Because when you look at things like, there's a low-fat variety here, pick up a low-fat food and look at the label.
Yeah.
It's loaded with sugar. Pick up a low-sugar one, it's loaded with fat. So they always put something in to catch you.
But that's why it's always better to try and make your own food, because you know what's going into it, and, you can't go wrong with raw materials. The time argument, we've all got time to sit on Instagram and scroll, or we've all got time to do this. You can make time for... I mean, look, I can't preach, I'm a busy mum, but, if you want to prioritise it and not be ill, people can make time to batch cook or whatever else it might be.
Dawn, do you make time for a morning hug?
Absolutely.
I've hugged every one of you this morning. I would just like to say, or you've all hugged me, whichever way it might be.
I love this story. Well, it's the front page of the Times. Why women, in particular, should embrace a morning hug.
See that? Immediately it's women, as if we have no feelings.
Women do better out of that.
But research, this is statistical stuff here. It's not just been making it up. Researchers in Germany and the Netherlands took 36 couples and subjected them to an experiment designed to raise their level of cortisol. This involved sticking your hand in an ice bucket, from what I can work out, some of the science involved in it. Any case, so a morning hug raises women's levels of cortisol, the happy, huggy, nice feeling.
But it wouldn't raise our levels.
But it doesn't do it for men.
Well, it'd do it for me.
You've always been in touch with your feminine
Well,
side.
it depends who you hug, and then maybe it gets better after that, you know, maybe.
But it helps your mental health for the rest of the day.
Well, right, but this was what we were talking about at 6 o'clock. We were saying, look, women benefit all the rest of the day. Their resilience to stress if they've had a hug, not men. Maybe if men got something else in the morning, their resilience and strength.
Isabel!
Sorry. Is it too late? Is it too early?
It's watershed.
It's a question. It's a question. I didn't say anything rude, did I? Just posed a question.
Just pose the question.
A proper grown-up hug.
You know people like David here, David Woodin, you know, they're all quiet. You don't think he'll be a hugger. He'll be a secret hugger.
Yeah, I had a hug with David.
Yeah, he'll be that. But you know,
we
it's
had a
interesting the amount of people that don't like being hugged.
We had a bit of a threesome this morning, didn't we? You had a
hug,
threesome. Yes, a three-way hug.
There is some generations, you know, found it was something you didn't do, and I wonder whether COVID has had playing an impact on the likelihood of people not wanting to hug.
I definitely kiss less post-COVID. I'm up for a hug, but I don't want to get too close to people's... unless they're really good friends.
You see, from a man's point of view, hugging was made popular by the Yanks, the Americans, didn't they? I mean, because blokes didn't used to hug, but you see it in all the American movies. They're all big huggers.
Jurgen Klopp does it every time one of his players.
Well, my Belgian relatives, the men, when they meet each other, 3 kisses. Every time.
I can never work out how many times you're meant to kiss people.
3 in Belgium, apparently.
Good old-fashioned handshake between them, I always say.
It sets you up for the day. It sets you up for the day. Thanks, guys. See us back again at 45 minutes. The time is 10 minutes to 8.
Yeah, it's time to bring you up to date on the latest headlines this morning, and we've been talking about prostate cancer. NHS England say checks for it have hit an all-time high as urgent referrals for urological cancers have reached a record level in March. More than 24,000 men were checked.
Boris Johnson says the drug habits of middle-class cokeheads, as he calls them, are driving misery and crime across Britain. The policing minister, Kit Malthouse, who we'll be speaking to shortly, will announce that those convicted of selling or taking Class A drugs at football matches could face a 5-year ban to tackle a rise in violence. We'll ask him about that ourselves. 8:30, he'll be with us.
Glasgow Rangers have missed out on lifting that trophy after losing the Europa League last night in Seville. After extra time ended 1-1, the match went to penalties, with Frankfurt clinching it 5-4.
More on that. If you're a Rangers fans, you'll be licking your wounds this morning. We can now go live to our Scotland reporter, Davy Donaldson. He's outside Rangers home ground, Ibrox. Davy, an amazing amount of fans following, so much passion there for that, but it'll be a long journey home.
Yes, you're right, Eamonn. A huge, long journey home for the weary Rangers fans. 100,000 or so travelled to Seville for the final. Record numbers, really. Only 10,000 tickets available for those fans as well, so you have to hand it to the Rangers supporters deciding to go there without a ticket and enjoy the party. There was a fan zone for them set up at another stadium, so that certainly helped. But yeah, they spent a lot of money, a lot of hard-earned cash getting on the plane to Seville, and they've made it by any way they could as well, going via Malaga, going via Faro. I spoke to some at the airport the other day, going to Madrid and getting a train down. I'm sure Rangers fans have got there any way they could. Unfortunately, though, it wasn't to be. It started well for Rangers. Joe Rebo putting Rangers in front. However, Eintracht Frankfurt equalised, and then it went to extra time and then to the dreaded penalty shootout, and Rangers had Aaron Ramsey. He was the one, sadly for Rangers, that had his penalty saved. So not to be for Rangers. You saw the pictures at full time as well. Many Rangers fans in tears, and no wonder. It's been some journey for them this season. They've knocked out the likes of Borussia Dortmund and Leipzig, so you know it's been a long journey for them. It would have been absolutely brilliant for Rangers to win it, but sadly not to be.
Yeah, the dreaded penalty shootout again. Second time this week we've seen it deciding a final there. I see folks turning up behind you there, this morning for all of that. I mean, the worry is, I suppose, would there be any trouble? How badly was the result taken? Any news to report back to us?
No, I mean, I think we saw some trouble on the Tuesday night. There's some footage going around in social media. And I have to say, it was the Eintracht Frankfurt fans that appeared to start that trouble in a bar in Seville, approaching the Rangers fans, who did retaliate somewhat, but the police were moved in pretty sharpish. There's then a couple of incidents before the game, before the final in Seville last night, which was certainly a little bit more uglier. But again, from the video footage that we've seen, it certainly did appear to be the Eintracht Frankfurt fans that started that. There was chairs thrown back and forth. So, but I think in the grand scheme of things, when you've got 100,000 fans, including the Eintracht Frankfurt fans, 160,000 fans at a final, I think it was handled very, very well. And we saw the messages from Rangers Football Club before they set off. Ali McCoist there giving messages, Richard Goff and Graham Souness asking the fans to behave, and I have to say they've held their heads up high, because they really have come back and been a credit to the club.
All right, well done, Ali, keeping it all in perspective there. Thanks very much indeed, Davy. We'll leave it there. Davy Donaldson there outside Ibrox. Paul Coit in the studio now to talk about other football, English Premier League. This is about who will go down tonight. We've got Everton, Palace, we've got Villa, Burnley, we've got Chelsea, Leicester.
This is what you were saying about maths. This is the time we need the maths. This is the time we need to try and understand what's going on. So Everton play Palace tonight. Everton, well, you know what? They're in dire trouble at the moment. So they need to get something from that game tonight. They've got Aston Villa against Burnley. So Burnley need to get something as well. Chelsea, Leicester, which is not going to affect Leicester at all. Chelsea pretty much look like they're going to get in third place, but really it's looking like Everton and Burnley. So they're the ones that need it. Everton, if they win, they survive. They're definitely going to be playing Premier League football. But if Burnley win, they will only need a point in their final game. It's all going down to the wire. It really is all going down to the wire.
And you look at Villa, I mean, they will play a role in whether Burnley stay up or down.
Yep.
And also they could play a big role in whether City or Liverpool lift the title.
I don't think I've used this phrase yet this season, but they're the kingmakers.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the football phrases that could well be. So if they lose, then it looks like City. It shouldn't be any problem for Manchester City. But again, it ain't over yet. And also, every game kicks off at the same time. So it'll just be like the old days.
On Sunday.
Like the old days, 4 o'clock on a Sunday, everybody looking through into, oh, how's this one going? How's that one going? So anyway, final day of the season then on Sunday.
We've got the policing minister on at 8:30 this morning, and he's talking about football violence at some stage. We've got some hooligan news to report. Sheffield United v Nottingham Forest. Playoff after that game.
Yeah, well, this happened a couple of nights ago, and this was Billy Sharp, Sheffield United striker, and he was standing by the side of the pitch, and he got head-butted by a hooligan, by some idiot, which just is amazing to me. Not only, well, I don't know what the violence and the stupidity. Because
he was bleeding. He's bleeding at the end of it.
It's unbelievable. I mean, this is the thing. I just try and put myself in the mindset of, well, this mindless idiot that goes running on. Firstly, does he think, OK, I know what I'm going to do, I'm going to headbutt him? Secondly, you know you are going to get caught. Yeah. There are cameras everywhere. You're going to be banned for life, which you deserve to be, and he should be picked up by the police and arrested for this. Yeah. So there's that, and also Ollie McBurney, there's rumours about the little fracas that he was involved in as well, the Sheffield United striker. I mean, really, we're getting to the point there's too many pitch invasions at the moment, Eamonn, and that has to stop. It is illegal for fans to run on the pitch, but it seems that everybody celebrates. Let's now all run on the pitch, and it seems to be happening a lot, and it really needs to be stopped. So whether there's announcements, something happened. I mean, I've in the past had to clear one of these. It was all good-natured, but this is when I've had to stand up across a whole pitch and say, look, can everybody move away, which we managed to do.
You do that at Tottenham?
Yeah, well, this was the final game of the season for the finale, and that was all good-natured.
That used to be in the 70s and the 80s. That was the job of the police.
Yes.
Right, now it's stewards, volunteer stewards.
That's right.
Most of them. There is a difference.
Well, if you're a volunteer steward, and you're standing there. And we've seen pictures of this recently where stewards are standing there. So they've got to form a human barrier.
Yes.
But when you have a load of fans or whoever they are, or even if these are hooligans, there are some which are, you've got dads that are running on with their sons thinking, well, this is a great opportunity. We can, which I understand, we can run on, celebrate, we can stand on the pitch of our beloved team. But it has to be stopped because there's going to be more trouble unless it carries on.
I got to stop you, my friend.
I'm just in the flow.
just in the flow. Paul Coyte, thank you very much indeed. That's your sport. Let's head to the top of the hour and we'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
Tonight on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The police watchdog warns of a surge in crime as the cost of living crisis worsens.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday, the 19th of May. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
The newly appointed police watchdog has said officers should use discretion when deciding to prosecute people desperate to eat. Now, we want your views on this. He's warned of a surge in crime as the cost of living crisis continues to worsen.
It comes after the Chancellor told business leaders last night that he'll cut taxes to prompt investment amid warnings from the Bank of England of a looming recession.
In other news, Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have met with members of Canada's Ukrainian community on day 2 of their royal tour to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
And it is the final day of the sensational Wagatha Christie trial. Our reporter Ellie Costello will be there again for us this morning with all the latest drama from the Royal Courts of Justice.
Join in on any of our debates by getting in touch with us. And Phil in Yorkshire says, my wife and I are on pensions. We've got limited income because the cost of living, it is the most important story we have for you. He says, so we're on a limited income, we have our pensions, but I despair at all those complaining. Now, you'd think he would complain about this. What we have done is we turned our heating off in March. Nobody needs heating on now. This is what I say to my wife.
No, why on earth would you have the heating on now?
Do you have your heating on?
Of course not. Not for months. But I live in a new build, so it's hot. So do you. So.
We go to cheaper supermarkets now and we've stopped all the luxuries. So they're doing their bit. They just face up to, you know, they've probably been through this before. And, you know, they will have certainly lived through the 90s when, and the 80s when the inflation was right up to 25%.
Yeah, but listen to this. Philip says, I'm a single pensioner. I've cut my meals down. I don't smoke. My one vice is a $2.99 bottle of little wine once a fortnight. I wake up hungry and I go to bed hungry. And it is people like this who are also doing their bit and are still struggling. We want to hear your stories. We want to highlight them. And we want to bring
how it hurts or how you avoid it or your advice to other people. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet at gbnews. Not only that, you can also, what is called to young people, subscribe to the GB News channel. It doesn't mean subscribe, it just means join the sort of club.
For free.
You go to YouTube and you press a button and it doesn't cost you anything.
And what do you get there?
You get everything you need to know about GB News. You get behind the scenes stuff. You get to hear that how the audience is growing, thanks to you, which is absolutely superb. On the radio, on television, online. So we're on everything.
So our top story this hour, the police watchdog has warned of a surge in crime as a result of the rising cost of living after inflation has hit a record high of 9%.
Now, the man who is the newly appointed Chief Inspector of Constabulary, his name is Andy Cook, he also advised officers to use discretion when deciding whether to prosecute people stealing food, stealing to eat.
Well, his comments come as the government's reportedly drawing up plans to tackle the cost of living crisis to try and avoid a looming recession.
Speaking last night at a dinner for the Confederation of British Industry, the Chancellor told business leaders he was preparing to cut taxes to promote investment and avoid a downturn. That's cutting taxes for them, not you.
Well, the government is also reportedly working on plans for an emergency tax cut for the poorest families and a package to help those struggling with their energy bills.
Let's go to our reporter, Will Hollis. Now, Will is in Arnold in Nottinghamshire, getting your thoughts on this whole situation. So there you are, you're on a very empty high street today. Tell us more, Will.
Good morning. Yeah, quite empty, but you'll see in the background people moving towards the bus stops, going into Nottingham and other parts of the county where they might be working today. Of course, lots of people really worried about their shopping bills, really worried about the rise in fuel prices for their cars, and the big one, the heavy hitter, their energy of costs, of course, their gas and electric. We're talking about today about this 9% inflation rise for April. Well, at the start of April, that's when we first saw that massive jump in energy prices, the 54% rise on the Ofgem price cap, 3/4 of the inflation jump that we're seeing right now that was announced yesterday morning. That's particularly influenced by that jump in the cost of the price cap in the cost of energy. I've also been speaking to people here in Arnold about things like the cost of getting a bus. If you don't have a car or you've maybe subbed back on using your car at the moment, you get in a bus. Well, that's gone up 10, 20, 30p, maybe even more depending on where you are in the country. A lot of pensioners as well really worried about their pensions and whether that's going to last. So some of the people that I've been speaking to have been telling me their concerns.
Still shopping the same, but just trying to cut down where we can. But luckily, you know, it's not affecting us too much. But you know, we're both on pensions and we're okay. But I can imagine families with young children, it's hitting them the hardest.
We don't use the car as much as we used to, because I mean we've got scooters, so we get about and that. But my husband had an accident to work and he's disabled. He's been like that since he was 44 and he's now 71. And of course, as things increase, the pension doesn't increase to come in with the line of the cost of living. But we just have to manage.
Shopping-wise, I notice it more because I shop for a neighbour that's really vulnerable, and he buys the same stuff every week, and his shopping has gone up by £10 to £15 a week now.
Can you tell me a little bit about your utility bills and how you might be using different things at home and how you have to manage that?
Well, fortunately for us at the moment, it's warm. We don't need it on, do we? You know, it's It's not something I'm using at the moment. Stay warm, I'm not bothered.
What I've had to do, I've had to adjust the way I live, my style of living, cut down on certain things to make sure I've got money to compensate for bills which are more important. So I have to like assimilate what's important and what isn't and work out my money budget that way to pay for bills.
Well, it's made me skint. It's made me not have a lot of money at all, and the cost of food and everything when you haven't got a lot of money is ridiculous at the moment.
Electric bills been going up, it's nearly doubled. I've got public transport bills going up about like 20p a trip, so I have to get 3 buses just to get to work, so that's 30p each way, so 60p a day, which is about £3-4 a week. And then they give us a pay rise, yeah, but then they put the national insurance up, so they're giving it with one hand, taking it straight off us with the other. What they need to do, instead of taking money off us, the government get more money than us, take it off them. They're getting 75 grand a year. Why? Sitting on the bum doing nothing. Take money off them, not us.
Well, there's the passion and the anger about all of that.
Well,
Will, tell us more.
Yeah, well, as we saw yesterday, Rishi Sunak spoke to business leaders about the cost of living crisis. He described it as a perfect storm, promising things like an autumn budget where taxes would go down for them. No mention at this point of any tax decreases for working people, for the people that you might see here on Arnold's High Street, but as well, lots of people are going to be looking at that announcement, that conversation with business leaders, thinking, how does this help me? How is this going to help me? Something that's a few months away, when right now we're already struggling, and we know that things are going to get worse. So a lot of people are really concerned about not just today, not just tomorrow, but how things are going to continue to get worse for them in the next few months, and whether the government is going to do anything.
Well, Will, you know, lots of people talk about and look fondly back at Woolworths, and they talk about the demise of Woolworths and why it had to disappear. I've been talking to you about the, which I didn't realise, the demise of Little Chef, the eatery, often found on A roads more than motorways, and I had the occasion to stop in to Little Chef in Arnold, where you are today, a few years back, and they were so good and so kind, and their food was so good. I wrote to their head office, and they all got commendations from their head office because I did that. So I'm thinking they owe me a feed up there, they must, but you're telling me it's now gone.
It's the worst news that you could hear on a Thursday morning, isn't it? Because we all have these nice memories of the places that we go, you know, even if maybe chains aren't often thought upon quite fondly. Remembering something like a Little Chef is quite nice. And yep, they did close in 2018. I think there are still some Little Chefs in different parts of the country, but that one that you're talking about, it actually closed in 2005. I would have been 11 years old when you were making that trip back along the A60 down from Centre Parks in Sherwood Forest, and you would have been on that route, probably going back down to London, depending on where you might have been working at that particular time.
That's exactly where it was, Sherwood Forest. You're absolutely right, and Centre Parks. Well, lovely talking to you. Thanks for bringing us out and about and showing us the delights of Arnold and Nottinghamshire today. Thank you.
Look, the mention of Sherwood Forest, so many Robin Hood analogies. Let's speak to the Deputy Editor of CapEx, Alice Denby, now. And I think, Alice, everybody's talking about how to tackle this cost of living crisis. We've talked about windfall taxes, taking from the rich, essentially, and giving to the poor, sort of Robin Hood kind of theme, if you'll indulge me. But, you know, you were saying to us earlier on this very programme that these sorts of things may be populist, may be appealing in the short term, but it's not the correct way to form policy, in your view.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you heard from your Vox Pop there how badly this is affecting people and how much people want the government to step in to help. But the problem that the Chancellor faces is that if he pumps more money into the system, if he's tempted to go for big spending or quantitative easing, or indeed to go for punitive taxes on businesses, that is going to make the problem worse. What we actually need is cool heads. We need the government to get itself together and decide what it believes in and come together around a low-tax, pro-growth agenda.
Fair point. Let's bring in Tom.
Let's bring in Tom from the political perspective on all of this. So you have the Chancellor addressing the CBI last night. Will they have liked what he had to say?
Well, there's two sides to this coin, I suppose. Firstly, they will be receptive to this tax
tax-cutting plan on businesses, and this isn't general tax cuts, this is specific tax cuts to try and boost investment. It's the Chancellor's strategy for growth that he announced in his spring statement. Sort of didn't make a lot of headlines, but it's about that capital investment, trying to bring up the rate at which companies can actually invest in the things that will be good for the economy going into the future. Although when we're talking about an immediate cost of living crisis, that's the sort of move that won't help families right now. That's the sort of thing that may well boost the growth rate in the years to come. So looking at the immediate things that can be done, there's a very limited range of options. One of them potentially is cutting VAT. Now that would mean that potentially it would have a deflationary effect on prices. Hopefully it would be passed on to those prices.
So that's a good thing.
By the shops. It might be a good thing, but then that also means the government obviously has less money in and of itself, because it's taking in less revenue by cutting that VAT. So there are some two sides to that coin.
Yeah.
But it's something that's been proposed actually by a number of Conservative MPs. Jake Berry, the chairman of the Northern Research Group, Conservative MP, saying that VAT should be cut.
Yes.
So that's one option. There's the other option, which is to boost universal credit up by £20 a week again, and that would put more money into people's pockets. However, as we've been discussing, that might not be the best course, because it's pumping more money into the system that already has too much money pumped into it. That's why we're seeing so many prices rising to such unsustainable levels.
But you talk about unsustainable levels. I thought our inflation was bad. Alice, get a listen to this, right? So the United Kingdom in the league table of world inflation sits 6th, right, on 9%. Netherlands a bit above us. Brazil then on 12%. Russia on 17.8%. We haven't even hit the really bad bit yet. Argentina, 58%, and Turkey on 70%. Goodness me. So just when we think it couldn't get any worse, it could, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Russia has obviously, to some extent, brought this on itself, I would say. And I would just add to what Tom was saying. There are a couple of other things I think the government could do. It could cut import tariffs on certain food items. That would help consumers a little bit. We talked earlier in the programme about what it could do about childcare. That's an enormous expense on many households. For a 2-year-old to have a nursery place costs £13,000 a year. You could send a kid to private school for that. This is, it's an extremely expensive, the highest in the OECD. So there are some other immediate things that the government can do. But as we were saying, it's a real challenge.
Alice, do you buy the argument that by cutting VAT, the government would have less money to spend? I thought the whole Conservative principle was you cut taxes and actually then they end up gaining more through growth.
Yeah, I think you might see some benefits from the additional spending you would get. I think the government should look seriously at that.
OK, and what about the other popular one, the green levies? What about cutting those?
Yeah, I think there's a strong argument for moving the green levies into general taxation. And also there's a sort of £70 charge that I think people are going to face because of the collapse of certain energy companies. I think we should delay or do something about that. These are some concrete, immediate measures that the government could do in the short term.
OK, well, let's hope they're watching. Sounds like a lot of sensible solutions.
Talking about watching, there's going to be a series on Sky, which will feature Boris Johnson in this. And if you look at the front page, it's just one of the many papers. I don't know if we can get a close-up of this, but it is... You see this picture here. Do we see any idea here? Right. You think this is the Prime Minister. It's not. It's Sir Kenneth Branagh. It's Sir Kenneth Branagh. Now, I don't know what he sounds like. We're going to play you the trailer to the film later on in the programme today, but he certainly looks the part. Very, very good.
Spitting image moment.
Good, isn't it?
I think he's aged Boris Johnson a little bit there in that picture. It looks like Boris Johnson potentially in 10 years' time rather than right now.
I think it's a much better likeness than Carrie, though. Ophelia Lovibond playing Carrie there, and aside from the luscious locks, I don't think it's that persuasive a caricature, but Boris looks, I think he looks just like...
There was one moment in the trailer where you can see a room full of journalists, and it's one of those first press conferences before the first lockdown, and I was looking and seeing, because I was sitting at that press conference.
You were looking for yourself?
I was looking for my doppelganger, and no one's playing me in the film. I'm outraged.
Outraged. Ridiculous.
I think it's funny that it's Kenneth Branagh, the great Shakespearean actor playing Boris Johnson, but which Shakespeare character would Boris be? Is he Falstaff? Is he Henry V?
I like it. Yeah,
Very
let us
good.
know your views on that. Which Shakespeare character would Boris play, or would be? Yeah. Anyway, let us know your thoughts on that as we bring you up to date on the rest of the day's news. 8:17. These are the headlines.
Boris Johnson is facing pressure from his own party to cut taxes and help the most vulnerable households after inflation hit a 40-year high. Labour's amendment to the Queen's speech calling for an emergency budget was defeated in the Commons yesterday.
The UN Secretary-General says he's in intense contact with Russia and Western countries in a bid to restore Ukrainian grain exports as a global food crisis worsens. Antonio Guterres appealed to Russia to allow the safe and secure export of grain stored in Ukrainian ports.
Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have arrived in Canada for day 2 of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. They met with the country's Ukrainian community and attended a ceremony to honour Canada's war dead in Ottawa. It's the second day of this tour, which celebrates Queen Elizabeth's 7 decades on the throne. Just want to thank everybody because not only are we growing on your television screens, not physically, but in,
We might
be, but in terms of you watching, absolutely incredible. But also on the radio, Isabel.
Yes, so of course, those of you who've been with us since 3rd of January, we are doing something unique here on our breakfast show, and indeed throughout the whole day, I should say, simulcasting on TV and on radio, and it is paying off. Since we launched, 1.5 million hours of GB News Radio have been listened to. That's in the last 5 months, and that is all down to our lovely, loyal audience. And it's just really, really gratifying, isn't it? We've been working so hard. People wouldn't believe how much we punch above our weight, really, in terms of resources, in terms of covering stories and trying to bring you the news in our own unique way. And we're just grateful that you're staying
But you're
with us
on board.
for it.
We like having you on board. You can listen to us on GB News Radio, DAB Plus digital radio, radio player, tune-in apps like the GB News app, on your smart speaker, online at gbnews.UK. So you can listen in your car, you can listen on the move, you can listen at home. We just appreciate you listening at all. Though I personally think I'm much better in vision. I do. People often switch on and say, how did they get George Clooney to present GB News? And then you have to say, no, it's not. It's only me. I find it so embarrassing.
I'm so lucky to present with George Clooney every morning.
Well, it's not really. I mean, sometimes I think for 37 years of age, I haven't worn that well with the early starts.
Sometimes I just don't know what to say. What do I say to that? I can't win.
Yes,
I can't
Eamonn.
win. Yes, Eamonn. Love you lots.
Okay.
Look, we're going to turn our attention now to, I suppose, the British showbiz trial of the decade, the Wagatha Christie trial. Rebecca Vardy is suing Colleen Rooney. If you haven't been following this, I don't know where you've been. Of course, this is all about the publicity, the publicly selling of...
What are you trying to say?
I don't know.
So she went on her social media and she saw all these stories being leaked to the press. She set a trap that only one person could access that social media, which was Rebecca Vardy.
And
so therefore, any stories that were repeated, the theory was they came from Rebecca Vardy. But did they?
Rebecca Vardy brought this case, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how it's all working out.
Panning
Rebecca
out.
Vardy, and speak to the lady who knows she's been there every day for us, Ellie Costello, at the Royal Court of Justice for us this morning. Hopefully you can explain it a bit more eloquently than I just tried to.
Yes, good morning, Isabel and Eamonn. It's been a dramatic 7 days, but today is that final day. Those final arguments will be made in court before the judge takes her time to hand down her judgment, which we'll expect in the next couple of weeks. Of course, Rebecca Vardy is suing Colleen Rooney for libel. She's saying she never leaked stories about her. Colleen Rooney's saying she definitely did in that famous Wagatha Christie post that she posted on Instagram. But I'm not too sure, whatever this judgment is, I'm not too sure there's going to be a clear winner out of this. The only people that seem to be doing well from this trial are the lawyers. This is like their Christmases and their birthdays all at once. It's estimated that the women have spent £3 million to get this case to court. And the general public perception is that this is a massive waste of court time and also a massive waste of money. We've been hearing on the programme this morning that so many people in this country cannot afford to eat. And we've got these two women spending spending millions of pounds having a glorified catfight in one of the highest courts in the land. It hasn't gone down well with many people on Twitter. There has been some suggestion that this money should have been donated to a charity in Ukraine, or perhaps to Deborah James, who's raised, I think, over £6 million for cancer research in the last week or so. And this is certainly a similar view to the judge as well. She asked for these women to settle out of court several times before the proceedings were brought last week. That obviously didn't happen. And you can see behind me, court doesn't open for another 2 hours. These proceedings don't start. And already there is a media circus behind me, and there will be a scrum when Colleen Rooney and Rebecca Vardy arrive this morning for the last day of proceedings.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you very much indeed. With that, we'll take a break. Stay with us. We've got the latest from the Royal Tour of Canada.
Yes, that's as Prince Charles and Camilla continue that visit. More in a moment.
After the...
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A fine start for most of us following last night's heavy rain in places. Warm, sunny spells with just some showers remaining in the far northwest. We've seen some lively weather go through overnight as weather fronts cross the country from the west. High pressure is now building from the south, and so for the vast majority, actually, it's a fine morning. Sunny spells. 1 or 2 showers still possible towards the southeast for a time. Even these get out of the way. And then really showers by the afternoon will be confined to western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland where it will be cloudier and breezier. But for the vast majority, for the rest of Scotland, for England and Wales, sunny spells, light winds and feeling pleasant enough in that sunshine, with temperatures reaching 23 in London, 19 in Cardiff, 20 in Glasgow, 18 in Belfast. Now, through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening, we're going to see further clear spells for a time for many, further showers for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland. They die away for a time overnight, but in the south, well, our attention turns to the continent, where once again some showery rain will start to move in, so that by the end of the night, actually quite a cloudy picture in the south and across central parts of the UK. 12 or 13 degrees here, 9 to 11 with clear spells for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then during Friday morning, outbreaks of rain or showers for many southern parts of the country, and the threat of some intense thunderstorms just passing by the southeast, most likely staying just far enough away, but we'll keep an eye on those. And for the rest of the country, it's rain or showers moving in from the west and temperatures returning to around average for the time of year. Saturday brings with it plenty of fine weather, particularly in the south, still 1 or 2 showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland. And Sunday, I think we'll see a few more showers pushing in from the west, temperatures around average.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 8:27. Time flies when you're having a good time.
It does,
It's absolutely
it does.
rattling through this morning, and there's lots more still to come, including your favourite subject.
Well, aliens. We talked about this yesterday, and Isabel mocked it. She said, if that exists. Well, according to two top Pentagon admirals, they say they do exist, and we're going to be talking about that. They say they've recorded around 400 UFO sightings that nobody can explain. 8:45, Jo Wood, she'll be in the studio, and she'll be saying, some people would be lucky enough to see one UFO in their lives. She's seen three.
Three? Crikey.
Yeah.
Not sure where I stand on all of this. We'll find out, I think, in about 50 minutes.
Well, when they abduct you, you'll know where you stand.
Oh, gosh.
They're taking away and they experiment on
Do you know who's abducted Boris's persona? That is Kenneth Branagh. He has been transformed into Boris Johnson for a brand new drama. We'll have all the latest on that in our entertainment news. That's at 9:20.
Good. You can join in those discussions. You've been doing very well. Now, just a word to our viewers and listeners in Scotland, because we're talking about turning the central heating off, saving money and whatever. John says, we are pensioners. We turned our heating off in March. We're old enough to remember the old days when we only had a coal fire and there was ice on the windows inside. I'm puzzled why thousands are worried about not receiving their passport for travel when they can't manage to afford to live even here. Surely some common sense must prevail. And this is Irene in Edinburgh.
Yeah, she says, we live in Scotland where the weather is not as warm as the south, at least 5 degrees colder up here. We still need the heating on. My brother and his wife live up there as well, and they say it's absolutely freezing still.
Christine, good morning to you. We're talking about there's an obesity epidemic, of course, and she's saying, well, since going plant-based, my weight and my food bill has dropped considerably because of that. I was doing some filming during the week, and there was catering involved in it, right? But it had been decreed that we weren't allowed to eat meat.
Oh, right, meat-free Monday?
No, just meat-free Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Now, that really annoys me, because TV companies, some of them sign up to sustainability, and some of that sustainability means that there'll be less cows on the planet. But I think I should decide that. I don't think they should decide whether I can have a stew or a hamburger or whatever it happens to be. But now you're being forced.
No personal choice. I thought that was what you were advocating a minute ago when it came to healthy food. You're like, it's not working choice when it comes to food. We should just be told. Then we'd save the planet, the NHS, the lot. Then we'd be living in North Korea.
You just sort of licking your lips and you fancy a pork chop or something, And you get there and they go, no, we don't do meat. Why don't you do meat? They don't do meat.
I don't know the
do all that fungus and all sorts of...
Fungus, did you say?
Yeah, fungus and pomegranates. If I have another pomegranate, what is a pomegranate?
It's an antioxidant. It's very good for you.
Yeah, but it's all crackly in your teeth and
I thought you
things.
say something else then. Let us know, do you stand with Eamonn on this? All crackly in your teeth.
It's just about choice.
It doesn't exist as a proper food source for Eamonn. That's pomegranate. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, that's not...
Get in touch.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, day 2 of his Canadian tour with the Duchess of Cornwall, and they met members of Canada's Ukraine community at an Orthodox cathedral in Ottawa.
Yes, the royal couple managed to pack a staggering 11 engagements into their busy first day. And our royal reporter Cameron Walker is in Canada, and he sent us this report a little bit earlier this morning.
If ever there were reservations about the Crown in Canada, the huge crowds of well-wishers suggest otherwise. Prince Charles and Camilla spent day 2 of their royal tour visiting the country's capital, Ottawa. Following a military investment recognising Prince Charles's commitments to the country, the royal couple paid their respects at the tomb of the unknown soldier, in the shadow of the war memorial unveiled by Prince Charles's great-grandfather, King George V, more than 80 years ago.
As well as formal ceremonies, their Royal Highnesses visited a local market here in Ottawa who are selling Canadian products like maple syrup. They were here to see how businesses were affected during the pandemic, and perhaps their presence could help increase the profile of businesses such as these.
Since Russia invaded Ukraine earlier this year, the royal couple have been keen to publicly show solidarity with Ukrainians. They visited the Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral to spend time with the congregation. Blue and yellow ribbons proudly represented their national flag. Tamara Rudenko-Haralampi is grateful for their visit.
The Ukrainian community knows and understands from the work that their Royal Highnesses have done, that they stand with Ukraine, they support Ukraine.
A quick dash across town continues the post-pandemic celebration with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police's special performance.
This is the first time since COVID-19 that the musical Rise have performed in front of a larger crowd. In the year of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, they get to ride in front of royalty.
The Royal Canadian Mounted Police are taking the performance on tour. Riding Master Sergeant Major Scott Williamson thinks the Queen's Platinum Jubilee makes this year extra special.
We are going to fly the flag, so to speak, for Her Majesty in what is a tremendous celebration, and I congratulate Her Majesty the Queen for reaching this milestone, and so thankful for her service to our country and the Commonwealth.
Climate change is expected to be a big focus today when Charles and Camilla visits Canada's Northwestern Territories. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Thank you, Cameron. Just after 8:30, people convicted of using cocaine at football matches could face a 5-year football ban and be forced to surrender their passports. This is under new rules announced by the government today.
Well, joining us to discuss this is the Minister of State for Crime and Policing, Kit Malthouse. Good to see you. Good morning to you.
I must admit, Mr. Malthouse, I'm not aware. I didn't know this was a big issue. How big an issue? How big a problem is this at football matches?
So the police tell us it's been an increasing problem over the last year or so, and certainly the reports, the investigations into the disorder we saw at the Euro final, Euro 2020, pointed towards the role of Class A drugs, particularly cocaine, in that disorder. And of course, football banning orders are preventative. So someone gets convicted of a crime at a football match, whether that's hate-related or violence-related, now drug-related. They're convicted of that crime, and alongside that we put this preventative order that means, as you say, they can't go to a football match for 3 to 5 years. If their team is playing overseas, they may have to surrender their passports so they can't travel, to prevent that violence. But it's also part of a signal that we're trying to send, Eamonn, that is to people who take drugs and think there is no consequence to their action, that actually they are playing a part in a huge and massive violent logistics operation that is bringing those drugs from South America to their home, and that they need to understand the part they're playing in that awful trade.
And also, I mean, only this week we're seeing an upturn in pitch invasions. Sheffield United and Forest today. Assault on players on the pitch. I mean, sometimes behaviour that you just can't explain. So, you know, maybe you're looking at this and thinking, well, something extraordinary must have taken part here. And also, I think you're very timely with this because, you know, with the World Cup coming up in Qatar in November, they'll take no prisoners there, literally.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, we've absolutely seen a rise in disorder, sadly, since the release from lockdown, the resumption of fans attending games in full across a number of leagues, not just confined to particular areas. And we think, and the police believe, that Class A drugs is driving quite a lot of that disorder. Obviously, there are strict rules about alcohol in football, no drinks within inside of the pitch, all that kind of stuff. And we have had, you know, in the 70s and 80s, you will well remember, you know, had to deal with some really very serious violence and hooliganism on an organised basis. Football banning orders have played a huge part in rooting out that problem. We've got about 1,400 in place at the moment. The really difficult customers that we want to drive out. When we saw post-Euro 2020, you know, the rise in online hate, we added that to the football banning orders. Now we're going to add Class A because we think it's driving a lot of this violence. But notwithstanding that, right, it's not just in the ground. You know, if you are travelling on a train, you've got lots of other passengers, families, whatever, and your behaviour is affected by the consumption of narcotics. There needs to be a consequence for that kind of behaviour on the way to a match as well as during.
What about, it's one thing sending out the message, don't do this or there'll be trouble, but what about detecting these people? Is that a sniffer dog operation or how do you test, or do you test?
Yeah, so we already obviously do deploy passive drug dogs in those situations. Often they're deployed by private security at football grounds, but the police now have a greater incentive, if you like, to get those drugs operations out there around matches. The British Transport Police, who you know police the rail network, they now have, funded by us I have to say, the first squad of drugs dogs they've had for a very long time. That could be going up and down a carriage looking for that kind of thing, because we have to deal with this problem. You know, football grounds, stadiums should be safe spaces for all of us, but particularly for families and children, you know, who want to go and see that sport free from violence and drugs and alcohol. And so making sure that we're able to weed out those people, signal, if you like, to the whole group of fans out there that we are on their side, that we want to take these people out, we think is a key part of the mission. That's what we're trying to do with this change.
Interesting. I want to talk to you now about the cost of living, but with your crime and policing hat on, if you will. We've heard this stark warning from the new Chief Inspector of Constabulary, Andy Cook, saying that he's expecting to see a surge in crime now that things have got so bad with the cost of living. And he's urging officers to show leniency if they see people who might be stealing food in order to eat. I mean, is that really the sort of law and order that we want to be seeing in this country, that the crisis is so bad we're allowing people to steal?
No, and I much as I have great respect for Andy, and I suspect his words have been taken out of context, as they say, I find that a bit old-fashioned thinking. I mean, from my point of view, the primary rule is that justice should be blind, and police officers should operate without fear and favour. They obviously have some discretion in dealing with particular circumstances, but in a retail environment, we have been working very closely with the police through a thing called the National Retail Crime Steering Group, which I chair, to look at crime in that particular environment and try and drive it down. But also this idea that crime will fluctuate with the economy is a bit old-fashioned thinking, I'm afraid. We've seen over the last 20 years points at which crime has risen when times have been good, and when it's fallen when times have been less good. Yeah, we now need to be smart about acquisitive crime, burglary, robbery, car crime, and drive them down even further. They're down very significantly, helped by the pandemic, but also by the extra police officers we've got out there and the concentration. But let me give you an example, right? I'm hosting a big drug summit here today. We've talked about drugs already. We know that about 50% of acquisitive crime, burglary, robbery, shoplifting, is driven by a drug addiction. If we could treat that drug addiction and prevent those people from leading that kind of life, we can deal with a lot of that crime. As you will know, from last year we started putting GPS tags on the ankles of burglars and robbers who are released from prison for up to a year after their release, so we know where they are and we can put them time and place next to a crime, where that we believe is deterring that behaviour. So we can be smart about this, and even if that kind of trend did exist 30, 40, 50 years ago, I truly believe that we don't have to accept it now.
Smarter, not harder. That's what I always say. Kit Malthouse is the Minister of State for Crime and Policing. We appreciate your time today, and he's getting tougher on football hooligans who are intoxicated with drugs in particular. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
We've got to leave it there. We are going to take a quick break. After that,
give us the thumbs up.
I know, that's the second Secretary of State to do that.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up from the Secretary of State. This is the world
Thumbs
we
up
live in now.
Thursday. That's what it is
I bet
today.
they don't get that on the other channels.
I'm giving... That's quite right, Isabel. We'll give the thumbs up to Dawn Neeson and David Wooding with the papers after this.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Let's get into the papers. We've got Dawn and David back with those today. David, we're looking at a tube strike, and this is over the Jubilee weekend. Dear.
Yes, it's quite a shocker, this, for anybody who's going to come to London or indeed lives in London, is going to try and celebrate. The RMT, the rail union, are going to have strikes at Green Park, the tube station closest to Buckingham Palace, on the 3rd of June, and at Euston, the main station where people are coming down from the north, a 24-hour strike.
Is it confirmed?
Well, that's what it's saying in here. Yeah. And they have a habit of calling these things off at the last minute sometimes, but drivers are going to be on strike on 3 of the lines, including aptly the Jubilee line, on the 4th. And to add to the misery, the West Coast link the Transpennine routes across the West Coast to the West Coast main lines are also going to have a strike. This is all about a bullying case, alleged bullying by an official, with 80 people who've complained about it. It's been going on for months. 80 people.
Ooh.
It's been going on for months.
Yeah.
And the question one must ask is, well, if it's been going on for months, why do we need to have the strikes on the Jubilee Day? Why can't it be...
Because they're the most effective. It's the tactics.
It's so embarrassing. So many people be flying in from all over the world, coming to see all the pomp and ceremony. I don't know if anyone's seen Regent Street lately. They've put all the bunting up. It's absolutely beautiful. It's on some of the front pages of the papers.
Well, you could argue they've got time now to sort it.
Well, perhaps, but imagine if it's all gridlock. I mean, London's bad enough as it is.
Oh, yesterday, London. I don't know if anybody was in London yesterday.
Gridlock.
I don't know what happened in London yesterday, but nothing was moving. It was just incredible.
But it's going to spoil it for people who just want to have a
exactly
celebration. Yeah.
As we've been discussing all morning, everyone's suffering at the moment, so just a little bit of a party would be good, just a little bit of a feel-good factor, because every single newspaper, doom and gloom, so a bit of a feel-good factor. And it's not going to help their cause, because ordinary people are going to go, I just need a bit of light relief, and now I can't do this, I can't do that because of the strikes, and it's just like... I just think any other time, just let people have a party.
Give us a break.
Give us a break. Give us a souvenir, Dawn.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Well, we do, as Brits, absolutely adore a royal souvenir.
We do like a bit of pomp and pageantry, don't we? I mean, this is...
Bit of old tat.
Eamonn, this is Her Majesty's tat.
Hang on a minute. Your walls are adorned with football paraphernalia.
That's not tat.
That's tat. If ever. Sweaty shirts.
This is royal tat. This is Her Majesty's tat, if you don't mind. These are the official souvenirs for the Jubilee, and they include some rather expensive sparkling wine, English sparkling wine, £39 a bottle, some corgi biscuits, which are, golly gosh, £58. In a keepsake tin. £58 for a corgi biscuit.
It's the tin.
Oh, my Lord. And a Buckingham Palace zip-top sports bag for £289.
Oh, I like the look
maybe
of
the
that.
Americans might buy it.
But yeah, I'm not going to. But I must confess, I just turned over and I have got a souvenir for the Jubilee.
Which is?
It's a deck chair.
Oh, have you?
It's not a Queen's deck chair. It's a sort of maybe a slight rip-off one, but it's a Union Jack Jubilee deck chair.
Oh, fantastic. I see, I've said it before in this programme, I've got one bit of royal tat, and that was when Prince George was born, and it says, hooray for George. But apparently we're going to be bringing out some GB News...
Are we bringing out tat?
Jubilee tat.
That won't be tat.
To be continued. I'll let you know when I hear more of an update on that.
Will our faces be on this?
That would be it, with a crown, no less. There we go.
I've got a Jubilee mug from the 1977 Silver Jubilee, yes. Now, it's probably worth a little bit now when you keep...
So how old would you be then? Teenager, 16?
Oh, yeah, young kid. I was about...
Yeah. think you'd have known better. It is probably worth something now.
It is, yeah.
Right, so we'll go to the Times, page 4. Wrong surgery and jabs amongst hundreds of NHS. What does this mean? Never events. What does that mean?
Well, a never event is something that should never happen when you have a surgical procedure. And there were 400 of those last year. And there were also 98 cases of foreign bodies being left inside. Yeah, things such as like swabs and scalpel blades and so forth.
Haven't you leave a scalpel inside somewhere?
I know, it's frightening.
Yeah, but do you know any surgeons? Because the surgeons I know, they're always out drinking, operating the next day.
Very reassuring, isn't it?
You're not helping.
Well, I mean, in case any of your viewers are actually about to go in for a procedure, we must stress that 10 million operations take place in the NHS every day. So it's a very, very tiny amount. But nevertheless, it's good that they are transparent about this and bring these events out. So that
they say Monday's the worst day to be operated on, don't they? The morning after, the day of the week after the weekend.
Everybody has that Monday morning feeling, don't they? So if you're a surgeon, then, I'm not going in for that Monday morning operation now, I must admit. They're the wrong hips. I mean, God almighty.
They what?
They do the wrong hips. You're going for a hip replacement and they just do the wrong hip.
Can you imagine,
Maybe that's what's wrong with me.
They just did the wrong hip.
Well,
they did both. It can't be that.
They did both. They're bound to have got one of them right.
But did they do your hips or did they do something else? You just don't know yet.
And there were 7 cases of the wrong blood being put in during a transfusion.
What?
No, that's not funny.
Again, these things are serious when they happen, but they are very, very rare, thankfully.
Yesterday was something like World Maths Day or something, I don't know.
Numeracy Week,
Numeracy Week.
I don't know.
But anyway, because we don't know anything about maths, nor are we particularly interested in maths, but the word maths is enough to make me go all funny and weird.
Well, this is the perfect story for you then, Eamonn. This is the front page of the Daily Star today, who are determined to have a bit of fun with life at the moment, and good for them. Good column every Wednesday, by the way.
Very good column, and I genuinely mean it is a very good column. I often nick ideas for other columns.
I can start charging you. Start charging you. Weapon of mass destruction, very good headline, and another person that wrote that. An ex-Bank of England economist says we shouldn't use the word maths as it's a bit scary. Evidently, numeracy would encourage more people to be more numerate and more in touch with their maths. It's just a word. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm like you. I'm not a big fan of maths. I actually passed out doing my maths O-level and still managed to pass. I don't know how.
Good for you.
Yeah. Only
just. You passed out like you fainted.
I actually fainted doing maths O-level.
I got my first time I did it, I got what was called unclassified. It's almost impossible to get. It's almost impossible to get, right? So you get A, B, C, D, E, F, which is also fail, and then there's unclassified.
Eamonn, you really are bad, because, I mean, we always joke about this.
You have to just write your name down.
I honestly, it's a miracle I got an A. My parents bribed me through my GCSEs. I got a financial incentive for A-stars and A's, and then I got a penalty if I got B's and C's. I managed to get an A in my maths. Heaven forbid. I don't know how, but I couldn't work out how much I was owed on results day. Which is like my favourite story. Anyway,
talking about money.
Bribing your children.
Talking about money. So, OK, you have this old piece of tat in the corner, a vase.
That's no way to talk about Dave Wooding.
This is in the Mail, page 8, and what's inside it, David?
Oh, a lot of money. It's a vase that was bought by a surgeon. We see we come full circle back to surgeons again. It's a chipped old Chinese vase, blue and gold, and he bought it for a couple of £100 because he liked the look of it. Then a friend came round some years later and said, "Oh, I'd put that in a safer place. It might be worth a bit of money." So they moved it to a safer place. Then they decided to put it up for auction years later, and they were told they'd get 150,000 for it. Went under the hammer for £1.5 million.
Wow.
Gosh. Well, there you go.
Dream, isn't it?
And it is an absolute dream. Guys, thank you very much indeed. Enjoyed your romp through the papers today. We've got to leave it there. David Wooding is the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, soon to go... Can I say you're going out?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Soon to go to the Sunday Express editor. And Dawn Neeson is... she's edited them all. She's been around the place. She's been around...
Been round the block, Eamonn, thank you.
But you're so in demand.
36
in demand.
years.
In demand. Thank you very much indeed, Dawn and David. Thank you very much indeed. Now, yesterday marked the start of the first public congressional hearing on unidentified flying objects in 50 years.
Well, in those hearings, intelligence chiefs revealed they'd recorded around 400 UFO sightings in total.
Right. Now, of those sightings, the American military claimed to have had 11 close encounters with UFOs, but are yet to determine their origins. In other words, they can't explain this, can't explain it at all. Joe Wood, celebrity Joe Wood, now joins us. Joe, you can identify with what they are talking about here, because you haven't just seen one UFO. How many UFOs have you seen?
Yes, I saw a great UFO in Brazil years ago, and it was very clear it was a UFO, because it just rose up and zoomed off at speeds that were unbelievable. And since then, I've been obsessed with all things alien and UFO.
So you wouldn't take much persuasion to believe there is something out there?
No, for sure there is something out there, because we cannot possibly be the only beings on a big planet. Well, not that big a planet. We can't be the only beings here out of trillions and trillions of stars. It would be really sad if we were the only ones. But there's definitely other lives on other planets. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
What sort of reaction do you get from people when you say that you've been obsessed all this time? And I know you were with Ronnie at that time in Brazil, Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones, when you saw those UFOs. But do you get people like me, who is a bit of a sort of alien skeptic, laughing at you? And if you do, does it make you happy that these US intelligence officials are now taking this a bit more seriously?
It's not that they're taking it a bit more seriously, they're being allowed to speak. That's the difference.
Yeah, that is the difference, Eamonn. They've been allowed to speak. And I think this has been coming for a long time. And the UFO industry, or whatever you might call it, the UFO people have been pushing for this for so long. I mean, years ago, everybody used to look at me and say, yeah, right, Joe, what were you drinking that night? But I was packing the kids' bags to go, and Ronnie said, there's something weird out there. And I went out, and, it was, I'd never seen anything like it. It was just so amazing. But now, these days, people are much more accepting of it. And I think people you just got to look up at the stars and say, we cannot possibly be here alone. And there'll be advanced technologies way beyond our wildest imagination. And there'll be civilizations that's just starting out. There has to be. By the law of averages, there has to be.
Yeah, so I think the thing about this is we're now getting, we've got Scott Bray. Mr. Scott Bray is the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, and he revealed they had recorded around 400 UFO sightings in total. They could only explain one of 144 sightings. I think the story about all of this, Joe, is that it is fashionable to mock and laugh at somebody like you, but now you've got these top people in the Pentagon saying that for years we haven't been allowed to speak. And when you ever watch any documentaries or read up on the extent the authorities, including our own, have gone to cover this up, because the fear is that everybody will run to the hills, they'll all panic, so they keep the truth, or what is supposed to be the truth, from us. So do you think, we have had close contact? Do you think we have made contact?
Yes, I'm sure we have. And I think what they're letting out now is just a little bit of what they really, really have. They must have so much information, and they must have so many encounters. They've been doing reverse technology on crafts that have crashed for years and years, since 1947. So they know all this. They're just letting us have a little bit, just a little taster to keep us all happy. But there's a lot more than we can imagine.
I admire your enthusiasm for it. I just always think a UFO is what it says on the tin. It's just an unidentified flying object. It's probably just...
You haven't studied the footage. You haven't seen the footage.
I just don't buy it. Just because we don't know what it is doesn't mean it's like some sort of green, spocky alien. I think it's a sort of... We've watched too many movies. You're
so
just
actually,
not going to win me over.
You look at the extent of the universe, right? And we're not the only universe there is there.
I'm happy to accept that look, some of our voyages out into space, we've come back and found evidence of life, which is a couple of cells that have multiplied on a bit of, you know, damp, soggy moon soil or whatever.
You would like to think we're the only ones out of those billions and billions of stars out there. We are the only beings in this.
It's possible that existence on Earth is just a freak accident, and you know we've got our own little thing going on. And I think it's possible, maybe even more likely, that some of these UFOs are things like Russian spy planes or whatever it might be, the threat of the day. Who knows? We're not going to resolve it now, but I find it interesting. I love to hear people's stories like yours, Joe, and I know you're off to film something on this, aren't you? Alien Nation, a new series on it.
Yes, my podcast I do. It's called Alien Nation. You should listen to some of those stories. They're fantastic.
I'll give it a go. I'll give it.
Yeah, but you see, what it is, Joe, is it makes people like Isabel feel more comfortable. They can sleep in bed at night. She doesn't have to worry about her children.
I just don't believe it.
It's not. You don't have to be scared. But if you actually don't believe that aliens have landed here and passed on technology to the American military or the Russian military or the British military. They've shared technology. You look at things, you look at the technological timeline. We weren't able to do this. We were using clubs and whatever, and then the next minute we're driving around in cars, or then we've got rockets going to space. Technology has been traded. There's no doubt. Wouldn't you love, Joe, if there was nothing to worry about? All the American presidents that come into being, they're all briefed. They're all briefed by NASA and the CIA and whatever.
Too many films.
No, it's not too many. It's fact.
Sure
it's fact.
they are.
But anyway, there we go. Joe, makes people feel better not to listen to you and to sort of smile about it. There we go. But I think it's always fascinating to explore and question the whole narrative. Thank you very much indeed, Joe. Good luck.
I think so too, Eamonn. Definitely. Question the narrative.
Good.
I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Good. Live long and prosper.
Joe Wood, thank you so much indeed for joining us this morning, and for you at home listening or watching, stay with us. Lots more coming your way. We'll be talking about the ongoing problem of the cost of living and how it affects you after this.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The police watchdog warns of a surge in crime as the cost of living crisis worsens.
Very good to have you on board. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock, Thursday the 19th of May. You're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The newly appointed police watchdog has said officers should use discretion when deciding to prosecute people desperate to eat. He's warned of a surge in crime as the cost of living crisis continues to worsen.
Now, it comes after the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, told business leaders last night that he will cut taxes to them to prompt investment amid warnings from the Bank of England of a looming recession.
Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall may be touring Canada on behalf of Her Majesty, but the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are much closer to home. We'll be explaining why Kate and William will be spending the evening with one of Hollywood's biggest stars.
And Kenneth Branagh channels Boris Johnson. We're going to be having a look at the upcoming drama on Sky. This is England. It's about the Prime Minister's personal and professional life during the pandemic.
Can't wait for that. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Look, join in
He
any
mightn't
of our
think so.
discussions. No, maybe not. Let us know what you think, Boris Johnson. If you're watching, let us know what you think. GBnews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBnews.
We'll be running the trailer for that film, and Kenneth Branagh certainly looks good. He's got the look right, he's got the voice
very
right.
good,
Also, we've got a GB News channel on YouTube. Get involved in that one to get the latest on the big stories. Here we are, the People's Channel. Our top story this half hour, the police watchdog has warned of a surge in crime as a result of the rising cost of living after inflation hit that record high yesterday of 9%.
Well, to Kit Malthouse's consternation, who we were speaking to just half an hour ago, that is the Secretary of State for Police and Criming, he was very disappointed to hear of Andy Cook's advice to use discretion when deciding whether to prosecute people stealing to eat.
Now, those comments come as the government faces pressure to tackle the cost of living and avoid a looming recession. Speaking last night at a dinner for the CBI, the Chancellor told business leaders he was preparing to cut taxes to them to promote investment and avoid a downturn.
Well, the government's also reportedly drawing up plans for an emergency tax cut for the poorest families and a package to help those struggling with their energy bills.
We've been out and about speaking to people in Arnold, in Nottinghamshire, about the cost of living crisis and how it's affecting them. Here's what they had to say.
Still shopping the same, but just trying to cut down where we can. But luckily, it's not affecting us too much. But we're both on pensions and we're okay. But I can imagine families with young children, it's hitting them the hardest.
We don't use the car as much as we used to because, we've got scooters, so we get about and that. But my husband had an accident to work and he's disabled. He's been like that since he was 44 and he's now 71. And of course, as things increase, the pension doesn't increase to come in with the line of the cost of living. But we just have to manage.
Shopping-wise, I notice it more because I shop for a neighbour that's really vulnerable and he buys the same stuff every week and his shopping has gone up by £10 to £15 a week now.
Can you tell me a little bit about your utility bills and how you might be using different things at home and how you have to manage that?
Well, fortunately for us at the moment, it's warm. We don't need it on, do we? It's not something I'm using at the moment. Stay warm. I'm not bothered.
What I've had to do, I've had to adjust the way I live, my style of living, cut down on certain things to make sure I've got money to compensate for bills which are more important. So I have to assimilate what's important and what isn't and work out my money budget that way to pay for bills.
Well, it's made me skint. It's made me not have a lot of money at all, and the cost of food and everything when you haven't got a lot of money is ridiculous at the moment.
Electric bills been going up, it's nearly doubled. I've got public transport bills going up about 20p a trip, so I have to get 3 buses just to get to work, so that's 30p each way, so 60p a day, which is about £3-4 a week. And then they give us a pay rise, but then they put the national insurance up, so they're giving it with one hand, taking it straight off us with the other. What they need to do, instead of taking money off us, the government get more money than us, take it off them. They're getting 75 grand a year. Why? Sitting on the bum doing nothing. Take money off them, not us.
The economics commentator Laurie Laird joins me now, and you know, sometimes you can sense that people are frightened. It's like when people go into a divorce, they get nasty because they get frightened, and you can hear it from people. They think, well, what else do you expect us to do? Yes, there has to be some sort of personal responsibility, yes, because we're all in this together.
What a lovely, well, lovely is the wrong word, what an interesting analogy there. But it is a little bit like that. Right now, prices are rising. They're rising before our eyes. But people have had a little bit of preparation for this. We have been talking about cost of living. So it's difficult to kind of de-link whether people are actually feeling it right now or whether they're reading about it, because we're talking about it. The worst is yet to come, and I feel so bad when I come here because I feel like I'm doom and gloom.
Yeah, no stardust to sprinkle and make this better.
I wish I had. But let's talk about how things can help. Where is the help going to come? Now, we had Andrew Bailey. He is the head of the Bank of England.
Yes.
Testified before the Treasury Select Committee on Monday. And it was rather remarkable because the Bank of England sets interest rates. He sat before a load of MPs and said, guys, this isn't quite my problem. It's not my fault. It's Vladimir Putin's fault.
Well, the Chancellor said more or less the same to the Confederation of British Industry last night.
Absolutely. So who is responsible? It is true that some things are out of the politicians' control, out of the Bank of England's control. But you have to help people. And I'm being a little bit personal here. I'm giving you an opinion. Politicians can help the poorest people. And it doesn't seem that the politicians are ready for that yet.
Yeah, you know, you could say that people who are better off have more of a cushion. So 10% hitting them won't be as bad as 10% hitting people who have got nothing to fall back on.
Absolutely. The poorest families spend as much as 40% of their income on food. Food prices are increasing. I'm noticing it now. Are you noticing it when you go to the supermarket?
I have this. Listen, I'm not much of a one for saving or whatever, but what I would do, I've always tended to deal with money problems by working harder and trying to earn more. And I'm lucky that, you know, as a self-employed person, I have the ability to do that, the opportunity sometimes. But my basic tactic with all of this is to say, right, I know what I've got to do is to save 10% of my household budget. That's the way I look at it now. And if I can do that, I might come out even at the end of the day. Is that a decent enough philosophy to apply to most people?
It's so difficult because everyone's income is different. Everyone's tax bill is very different.
Well, here's what I'd do. Christmas, forget it. I'd really cut down on Christmas. It's not essential. I really would. And people go, they're aghast at this. But there's different ways of celebrating Christmas. You don't have to keep buying things. And summer holidays.
Can I go home and tell my children that Eamonn told me to do that?
No, I mean, you could buy for your children, but you don't have to buy for, you know, there's other adults. I mean, my wife, for instance, is obsessed with buying people who she doesn't even know scented candles. Like, why are you buying that for? And they're always expensive with them. And you think, you know, I honestly do think you can look at certain things. If you're a certain person, I'm not saying if you're on the bread line, you can do that. But I mean, the food situation is hitting people, the fuel situation is hitting people. But if you think that's bad, and we're sitting on 9%, we're 6th in the World League of inflation. You know, above us.
Honestly, I thought we were higher. We're higher than any other developed countries. So the US is on 8 and a bit. The Eurozone's on 7.4. So we're higher than...
We are higher than, but above us is the Netherlands. Above them is Brazil. Then you get to Russia, understandably, with what's going on there, 17.8%. Now, get this. You get to South America, Argentina, 58% inflation. Turkey, 70%.
Yeah. Those are sort of outliers. And I'd love to talk to you about what's happening in Turkey and Argentina. But if you look at developed countries, we're the highest. And we're going higher. The Bank of England has said, look, the Bank of England has underestimated inflation.
Right. So where do you stand on the governor of the Bank of England? I mean, it's now not a political decision as to how you affect interest rates, but it is a Bank of England decision.
Absolutely. And the Bank of England has consistently underestimated inflation. They say we're going north of 10%. They've not got it right. You've got to wonder whether we go north of that because there will be another rise in the fuel price cap in October. Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, the Bank of England governor, is right when he says we can't control everything. We can't control the price of fuel. Where he's missing it is he has to communicate better.
But so does the government. The government have missed a chance to show that they care. The leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, yesterday, who was just saying, ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister just doesn't get it, he was saying. And the optics of that, if you look at that on the surface, doesn't seem to be wrong.
The optics are absolutely dreadful. And all we're getting right now is the government kind of playing with, shall we put a windfall tax on the oil company? Shall we not?
Yeah.
That's all that they are talking about.
But they're going to do it, aren't they? They're going to have to do it. I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
Where do you stand? Because everybody I talk to who's a money expert or an economics expert make out, well, it's not as simple as that, it's not as easy as that. The opposition parties are saying, have a windfall tax. Why? Do you think it's a bad idea?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes, I do. Look, companies are sort of like us. You need a predictable tax regime. As an individual, what happens if the government were to say, okay, Eamonn Holmes, I'm going to change your tax rate because you earned a whole lot last year.
Yeah. No, they already have done, and that's called retrospective tax. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, bad time for that one.
Yeah, bad time for that one.
But you do need a predictable tax regime.
You do.
Otherwise, what prevents you from moving to Monaco?
I understand. Laurie, very good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. But, as we say, the bad news is the poorer you are, the hardest you will be hit by what is going on now with 9% inflation. Laurie Laird is an economics commentator. The time is 13 minutes now past 8 o'clock. The latest news headlines are these. Boris Johnson is facing a pressure from his own party to cut taxes and help the most vulnerable households after inflation hit a 40-year high. Labour's amendment to the Queen's speech calling for an emergency budget was defeated in the Commons yesterday. The United Nations Secretary-General says he's in intense contact with Russia and Western countries in a bid to restore Ukrainian grain exports as global food crisis worsens. Antonio Guterres appealed to Russia to allow the safe and secure export of grain stored in Ukrainian ports. And Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have arrived in Canada for day 2 of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. They met with the country's Ukrainian community and attended a ceremony to honour Canada's war dead, and that took place in Ottawa.
Now, the annual Champion of Women Awards returns tomorrow night. And they recognise women who've paved the way, demonstrated extraordinary talent and provided support to others. And please say Andrea McLean is here in the studio to talk to us this morning
about it.
Nice to see you,
Andrea.
Hosted it 3 times before. So tell us a little bit about the award.
It's exactly what you just said. Basically, it is a really beautiful coming together of women from all around the UK who are just being celebrated for the fact that they are women who champion other women in all sorts of different fields, whether it's science and tech, business, style, innovation, whether they've just done something brave. It's a really, like I say, a beautiful coming together of women.
And do you think that's important? Do you think women supporting women is productive and sends out a message?
Yeah, of course. And I think because it's a coming together of women from all different fields, like I say, not specifically business, but there are a lot of business women there. There's unique perspective and unique challenges that each one of these women will bring to the table. And just the discussions that you listen to and the collaboration and the swapping of numbers, you know that by the time, because it's a daytime event, which is great, by the time that finishes, friendships have been made, collaborations have been made.
I've been to one of those events. I've tried to swap numbers, but nobody was taking me up on it. That's the problem.
Do you know, it's not a fashionable view to have anymore, but I really do think women are amazing. You're almost not allowed to say that in this current climate.
It's because it implies men aren't.
Well, just every single one of us knows, and I include you among us, every single one of us knows women who are boss women who are working hard, they're looking after their elderly relatives, they are taking care of the kids, they're looking after the house, they're trying to keep their partners happy. There's a lot on the plate of women on top of everything else. And I think it's just so great to celebrate us. We need a pat on the back.
Absolutely. And also, just to say that one person is great doesn't diminish that somebody isn't. There's enough greatness to go around, you know. So, yeah, absolutely. And, of course, this is just one thing. There are many other things that go on that celebrate everybody. This is just one thing that happens to celebrate women.
So these awards specifically, what sort of awards are given out? And if you could add a particular award, what would be your chosen area to expand it into?
Well, it sort of covers everything from, so for example, we sort of finish off with a champion of champions, but it's say a champion of style, a champion of bravery. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I'm so scared that I'm going to say who the winners are.
Oh, right.
I know who the winners are. Champion of innovation, particularly people who have, say, broken through glass ceilings in the world of, like, say, science and tech and business. But there's also more light-hearted awards as well. In terms of what I would bring on board, do you know, I think it would be a champion of just taking a leap of faith, because too often we give our all to something that we kind of know what the outcome might be. And I think that if you could be championed for doing something when you have no clue whether it's going to work or not, but you just gave it a punt anyway, I think that's worthy.
And you're speaking from experience.
I sure am, Eamonn.
Yeah.
I sure
How's
am.
your punt going?
It's going all right, thanks.
It's going
Eamonn.
okay.
Yeah, it's going okay.
If there was a champion of champions in the Loose Women's studio, who would come out on top there?
Me, but
Yes,
I'm not there anymore.
Good answer, Andrea. Thank you very much indeed. So where are these awards and when are they happening?
They're happening tomorrow and they are in central London.
Lovely.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Nice
Good
to
luck
see
with
you.
that. Thank you, Andrea.
Right, we have to take a break. So much to squeeze in this half hour. After the break, we'll be talking about all the latest showbiz news, including who's going to be performing at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. See you in a moment.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I was talking about Christmas, and I was saying how my wife wastes our household budget sending candles to people who don't even know.
No, Lucy says she doesn't send scented candles to anyone other than dear, beloved friends, Eamonn. Just keeping him in check for you, Ruth, don't worry. Right, talking of showbiz, because obviously that's quite a showbizy thing, isn't it, to send candles to your friends. Let's talk now to Ellie, who joins us in the studio to talk about all things showbiz. And Ellie, we want to talk really about Boris Johnson's latest impersonator. And we've got a clip of it as well.
This is amazing. So Kenneth Branagh is going to play Boris Johnson in a new Sky drama. It's a 5-part series. Kenneth Branagh is going to play Boris Johnson. We've also got Ophelia Lovibond. She's going to play Carrie. The cast is phenomenal on this, and they've just released the trailer.
Okay. But you see, the impressive thing about this is that you look at Ken Branagh and you think, no way does he even resemble Boris Johnson. But look at the trailer and tell us what you think.
New dawn is breaking. 2020 will be a year of prosperity. This COVID virus we need to keep an eye on.
500,000 deaths.
That is a worst-case scenario.
The single best thing we can all do is wash our hands.
We need to start modelling how we pay for it. You must stay at home.
I have a hunch that Johnson will come to regret securing the premiership.
Isn't it someone's actual job? Just give me a heads up.
The United Kingdom has overtaken Italy to report the highest official death toll.
This is England coming to Sky. Congratulations to the makeup and prosthetic departments for all of that, because he looks absolutely brilliant.
He does, and also it's this body language as well, his movements, his eye, this is phenomenal.
I do think it's hard to impersonate someone who's got such a unique style.
What?
And plenty
I
of
would
people
say to all our friends in the European Union, who aren't our friends at all, but I pretend they are. And I mean, it's easy to impersonate.
You're very, very good.
But then does it become a caricature? Do you know what I mean?
It is a caricature.
I know, but then
I think Kenneth might need to actually get some tips. You're mates, aren't you? It's a bit late now, but you could have done a better impersonation.
I think it's great. I think it's great, and there are better shots than that. But I think it's by and large very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with it.
Sky do these things very well.
They do this very well. The only thing I would say about this is feedback so far from people on social media about this is like, it's too soon, it's too raw.
I know, we almost don't want to go through it again.
Because this is England, it follows Boris Johnson through the pandemic, through Brexit, and through all of his, personal and political scandals as well. People
Too
are like,
political then.
I think it's raw for people still. They're like, we've just lived through it. Do we really need to see it again? But then they don't have to.
GB News audience, you won't like it then. That's it, we can rule you out, not for you.
You know what GB News audience will like?
What?
That will be the Platinum Jubilee celebrations.
Indeed.
And what a lineup, Ellie.
This is incredible. OK, so Saturday the 4th of June is when it's going to be the Platinum Party at the Palace at Buckingham Palace in front of 20,000 people in the audience there. You can watch it live at home on the BBC. They've just announced all the musical performers for this, and it's incredible, as you can see on screen. So Elton John's actually not going to be there live, but he's going to send a pre-recorded performance. It's going to be opened live by Queen and Adam Lambert. And Brian May's actually teased that something extra special is going to happen, because if you remember 20 years ago at the Golden Jubilee, he was on top of the palace, and he said, how am I going to top that? Wait and see. So that's really
the thing. When you go to all these celebrations, these jubilees, whatever, it's always the same people who perform. What are we going to do when they all corpse it?
Wait.
Plenty of fresh
You say this. OK, so Adam Lambert is opening it with Brian May and Queen. Diana Ross is closing it, but it also includes, let me read this lineup, Alicia Keys, Ella Eyre, Duran Duran, Andrea Bocelli, Mabel, Elbow, and the one I really want to see, the whole of this, is Steph London, because I want to see the Queen get down to Steph London, who is a rapper, singer, performer, really edgy, and I just think the mix is incredible. And they've also, of course, got Sam Ryder, our Eurovision hero.
Exactly, he's young and with it, our Eurovision...
Oh, yeah, no, I get that.
You keen now, Eamonn?
And then all the usual old names as well. You were very good. Very, very good.
Can we just talk about Harry and William? They're both up to things at the moment. Lots of royal stories. Prince Harry and Meghan, all this Netflix stuff. Well, now we're being told it's going to be sort of Kardashian style, which, to be honest,
I know, we're quite keen on this. I'm not going to do it. So we are now going to be apparently keeping up with Meghan and Harry. So this is according to Page Six. They've reportedly already started filming what's being billed as kind of at home with the Sussex-style docu-series. And this is part of their huge Netflix deal, because they signed this deal back in September 2020. It was $100 million, and they've not really provided that much content since.
I do think Meghan has really good interior design taste, just from the snippets that I've seen of the video calls they've done from there. So I'd enjoy a good
You want it to be kind of like Selling Sunset meets Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
With a bit of royalty thrown in.
Yes, exactly. And the big question about this, apparently, is when it's going to air. Apparently, Netflix are keen to have it coincide with Prince Harry's upcoming memoir, but Harry and Meghan want to hold it back a little bit till 2023, maybe just so that all these blows to the royal family don't come at once.
A quick word about the Top Gun premiere in London tonight.
Yes, happening tonight, Leicester Square. Of course, Tom Cruise is going to be there, but as well as that, Prince William, and Catherine will be there as well, because it's actually going to be a fundraising event for the film and TV charity. So it's an official royal film performance tonight. So it's a very special premiere in London London. And of course, we know that Tom Cruise likes to land these things in his helicopters, and he said he wants to land in Trafalgar Square, so we will see. He did land next to the red carpet for the American premiere, so who knows?
Do you think he'd rather land in Leicester Square than...
You think?
Square? There's that big column that it's in the way. That's just what I'd worry about there.
Makes it a bit tricky.
Because there's too many people in Leicester Square for that to happen. Ellie, thanks very much indeed.
Yeah,
thanks for rounding that off the day. I hope you enjoyed the show today, and we're going to be back Monday to do it all again. Stephen and Anne from tomorrow.
Well, actually, on that note, Stephen's wedding day today. Stephen Dixon. Yeah, so we wish him many happy returns for a wonderful day. The sun is shining. They're in the Lake District.
Brilliant.
So it's not actually going to be him tomorrow or over the weekend. But I think Anne might be back. I can't tell you the lineup, to be honest. Paul and Rosie, there we go. But I'll tell you who's up next. Tom Harwood.
Tom Harwood with The Briefing. Enjoy your day.
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A fine start for most of us following last night's heavy rain in places. Warm sunny spells with just some showers remaining in the far northwest. We've seen some lively weather go through overnight as weather fronts cross the country from the west. High pressure is now building from the south, and so for the vast majority, actually, it's a fine morning. Sunny spells. 1 or 2 showers still possible towards the southeast for a time. Even these get out of the way. And then really showers by the afternoon will be confined to western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, where it will be cloudier and breezier. But for the vast majority, for the rest of Scotland, for England and Wales, sunny spells, light winds, and feeling pleasant enough in that sunshine, with temperatures reaching 23 in London, 19 in Cardiff, 20 in Glasgow, 18 in Belfast. Now, through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening, we're going to see further clear spells for a time for many, further showers for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland. They die away for a time overnight, but in the south, well, our attention turns to the continent, where once again some showery rain will start to move in, so that by the end of the night, actually quite a cloudy picture in the south and across central parts of the UK. 12 or 13 degrees here, 9 to 11 with clear spells for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then during Friday morning, outbreaks of rain or showers for many southern parts of the country, and the threat of some intense thunderstorms just passing by the southeast, most likely staying just far enough away, but we'll keep an eye on those. And for the rest of the country, it's rain or showers moving in from the west, and temperatures returning to around average for the time of year. Saturday brings with it plenty of fine weather, particularly in the south, still 1 or 2 showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland. And Sunday, I think we'll see a few more showers pushing in from the west, temperatures around average.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.